Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Grizzly from coast to coast and around the world. Welcome back to another edition of Grizzly is Live. We have Elise with us tonight, known also as Star. Very talented person. Elise, why don't you step in and tell us a little about yourself?
So I'm here today to tell you the story of how I became a psychic. And it is something that happened pretty much over the course of the last 2 years. And it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, we can't wait. We got to dive straight into this. So,
my job or anything, because I want to keep my identity a secret. So,
oh, that's not a problem. We don't understand that. So, what got you into the psychic and medium realm? I mean, how did this all evolve for you?
So I had put some of this on the bio, but when I was growing up, I was raised in a family where the kind of dominant mindset was materialist. My parents did encourage me to kind of explore the spiritual realms a little bit, but they didn't. My dad, it was kind of the prevailing, like his opinion was prevailing, and he doesn't believe in any, life after death or energy or anything like that. And so I was like very much in that mindset. But I was open at the same time. And I did believe that there was something after death because it just made sense to me. I remember I sat in an armchair once when I was like maybe 14, 13, and I watched the sunset. And I sat and just went really deep inside myself. And I just thought, like, what happens like after we die? Like, what makes sense? And I was like, I came to the conclusion that there's no way that our consciousness can fade, that it wouldn't make sense, and that we kind of just like merge with everything was kind of my concept. And so I went with that for a long time. But I didn't really think, I thought all this stuff was really kooky. And then when I was in high school, I had internet access, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I would go and do research on stuff because it was weird and kooky. I was into like weird stuff, right? And I started reading, one of the things I started doing was reading Arrowwood DMT trip reports. I didn't smoke weed. I did start smoking weed later, secret identity, but I stopped. But anyway, but I didn't do any drugs, right? But I just thought these like Arrowwood DMT trip reports were so weird and fascinating, and they kept meeting the same entities, like these machine elves, and they would describe these entities the same way. And these people are from different backgrounds, and they're not necessarily also reading all these DMT trip reports. And so I was like, there's something to this. Like, why is there all this consistency in these trip reports? And I also started looking into, I wasn't looking into UFOs. I started looking into remote viewing a lot.
Oh, wow.
I learned about the remote viewing programs. I forget how. Someone maybe mentioned it to me, or just a long internet rabbit hole tangent. And so I started reading about that, and I was like really fascinated because, that's a government program that went on for 30 plus years and, ostensibly is over now, but probably not. Went from CIA, DOD, I forget what it was at first, not CIA, the one before that. And I was like, and there's all these, like accounts of it. And I'm like, why did they pay these people to do this for so long? And then that would also lead me into this weird, like, UFO, like abduction encounter stuff. And this was all like online at this point. I didn't have books yet. And I would just read about, like the different races of aliens. And I read about how, I think it's Buzz Aldrin, and he saw, UFOs when he was in space. And there's like this transmission with NASA, and there's someone here, on the moon, and it cuts out. And it's like, what?
Yeah, right.
So I was like, this stuff is really bizarre. But I wasn't like 100% sold on it. And my dad also had a UFO experience, and he had told me that growing up. And so I think that had something to do with it as well. And I'll tell you that some other time. It's actually, I'll tell you really quick. It's very simple story. He was on his motorcycle, and he was at a stoplight, and it was late at night. He wasn't drinking or on drugs or anything. And he noticed that all the stars were gone suddenly. And he was like, what? And he looked up, and it was just like black above him before there had been stars. And he was really confused. And so he actually turned off his motorcycle, and it was like dead silent. And then it just took off at like light speed and was gone. It was the ship that had been over him.
That's crazy.
What the fuck is that?
That is crazy.
Can I cuss on here?
Well, we're not supposed to, but we'll watch it. So Bobby Dizzle,
creative non
Bobby Dizzle says, see if she knows Paul Smith. He remote viewed for the Army and was on Joe Reagan's back in the day. Also my friend and his nephew. Well, that's interesting.
Well, that's awesome. I would love to talk to him on the show sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Bobby, hook us up, brother.
Yeah. So a lot of those guys went out and wrote books afterward and have testimonials. And so I've read like a couple of their books. I haven't read every single person's book. A lot of the time, honestly, it's like almost repetitive because it's the same story. I mean, they have different perspectives on it, and they'll be from different time periods and stuff. But at this point, I know remote viewing is real. I apologize for the road noise, everybody.
It's all right.
There's a very bad documentary on it, but it's a good starting point. The only problem with the documentary is it's like not very chronological, and it's kind of like, it's very cheesy. But it has a lot of good info in it, and it's like a lot of the core like weird stories, like instances. And so it's called Third Eye Spies, and it has a lot of interviews with a lot of the famous remote viewers, and Uri Geller's in it, and etc. So if you want to start somewhere, it's a fun little documentary. You don't have to read any books.
That's pretty cool. Bobby Dizzle, that's not the first person I've heard say that all the stars disappeared.
Oh,
well, that's wild.
There's a lot of UFO stories that are actually like that. So I've looked into UFOs since. I know a lot about UFOs. I don't want to spend this whole evening talking about UFOs because I think we can talk about it some other time. But yeah, so his story is not so unusual. To go back to my story, I thought all this was really strange, and I actually had an experience on mushrooms where I did mushrooms with a couple of friends. This was my first time doing them, and two things happened that were interesting. We all had the feeling that like everything had been divinely planned on mushrooms. Like we were watching this beautiful sunset over on this dock, like over this lake. It was like the longest, most gorgeous sunset of my life. I can still remember like how the colors changed so slowly, and like the vivid oranges and pinks of the sunset. And just like looking over the lake, we were like, there's no way that this just happened to be a coincidence. Like there has to be some kind of divine intervention. And none of us were really spiritual at the time. And the other thing that happened was we were coming down off of the mushrooms, and we were pretty sober. There's like a little bit of a transitory point, but none of us, we didn't take like a lot of mushrooms. And I don't know if you've ever done mushrooms. They don't make you hallucinate. It's not, at least I've never hallucinated on mushrooms. Like, it's more, it makes everything very intense and vivid and makes you very present. But it doesn't make you, it's never made me see things that aren't there. And I've always been like very functional on mushrooms. And so we were just like, it was nighttime now, and we're just looking out over the lake, and we're kind of talking, and we saw UFOs. And they were kind of like in the distance, there's these lights, and it looked kind of like stars, you know, kind of a thing. But they were moving in like loop de loops, and they would go like, ch-ch, and just like things that you were like, what? And then they would like all come together, and then they would split apart again, and they were like dancing. And we had this feeling that they were like showing off for us in some way, like that they were like trying to make their presence known. They're kind of like, hey, look at us. And so all three of us saw that, and we were like, and they did that for 30 minutes or so. Yeah. And so we were just like, this is really, really weird. And none of us really believed in UFOs because, you know, I had done all this research, but I just could not really reconcile it with what I believed, you know, like I couldn't believe like, oh, all of this is true, because what happens is once you accept one little part of it is true, it opens this door, and it's like everything has to be true then, just about, right? Like, not obviously there's still people that are fake out there and yada yada, but it's like, what isn't true, you know? And so it was just like too much of a step for me. And so that experience, you know, we just left after a while, went to like an IHOP and just kind of sat there, and we're like, yeah. and put it aside, you know, and I just tried not to think about it, essentially. Like, I was just like, yeah, I definitely saw that. There's definitely UFOs, but who knows what they are.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right on that. And that's still an ongoing topic as of today, as we speak. And some of it, I believe that it's American technology that's being re engineered or reverse engineered. Yes, I do believe that. I think the human being can actually take more than 9 Gs because UFOs take more than 9 Gs. So, how they do it, I have no idea. The military is approximately 50 years in advance in technology than us. So, that's a pretty big leap, you know? It really is. But let me ask you this, though. This has always been on my mind with you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else in your family has any special abilities or gifts?
So I had mentioned this, my mom's mom, who I never met, who died before I was born. She used to have very strong impulses of intuition, and she would follow them. But unfortunately, this was, you know, back in the day, and she was labeled as being crazy. And my mom said that she had never been crazy. Like, she wasn't crazy. Like, my mom is convinced that she wasn't crazy. But she ended up getting locked into a mental asylum and ended up dying there.
Yeah, and that's really sad because back then it was a taboo, and people did think and state and say that if you discuss anything about the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Dogman, seeing ghosts, seeing spirits, especially aliens and UFOs, they're like, yeah, we need to send this person to the doctor. And when I took psychology, one of the biggest problems I had was taking the class is that we have to take a person and we had to identify the person, you know, Betty and Barney. Yep, that's a good one to reference. And I would have to describe that person, diagnose that person, and medicate that person. And I told my professor, I'm like, I have a problem with this. He's like, why do you have a problem? I said, because I believe that kids can see ghosts. I believe in psychics and mediums. I believe people have special abilities that they don't know about. They have not been properly trained and they're scared. They think they're crazy. And here we are putting them in a classification and shoving medicine down their throat and sending them out the door.
Yeah.
And we're not taking time to diagnose these people and test them like the scientists used to do when somebody said, I'm seeing something, you know. I mean, you say that in church today. I saw something, they're like, oh Lord, oh whatever. It's a real big stigma. Now,
Mm.
today it has changed. A lot of people like us has come forward over the years. A lot of older people, the older generation, has come forward and said and speak of these things, and now are acknowledging, yes, we had these items, the eyewitness encounters or the encounters as well.
Mhm.
And that's very interesting. It really is. I mean, what do you think about the whole subject and everything?
That is a huge topic. There is a book that's very interesting that I would like to cover. I'd actually like to interview the author of this, Olga Kataditi, and she is a Russian psychiatrist. And she goes and she ends up getting trained by Siberian shamans. And she has a very interesting view on mental health. And because she was treating people using traditional psychiatry, but then when she kind of came into her energy healing, her abilities, she started to realize that there were ways that she could treat people energetically, and was able to do like soul retrievals and heal people that were in like these disassociated states and bring them back. I think that energy follows matter and matter follows energy.
Okay.
And I think that there are things where people have chemical imbalances. There's definitely manic states. There's definitely people that are not. I don't think that what they're seeing is like a consensus reality, even if, another psychic saw, like another psychic wouldn't be able to see what they were seeing. Like they are in a manic delusional state. They're out of touch with reality. But also, I believe absolutely that people see energy. I see energy, and I can talk to somebody else. My friend, for instance, sees energy through like a computer, their screen, which I can't do. I have a hard time through the screen. I can only feel it through a screen. And I can show her what's in my room, and she can track it the same as I can. I've also had experiences where I sent out light and somebody followed it, like they watched it. Um,
Wow.
I've I know that what I'm seeing is like the UFOs that I saw with my friends, that it is a consensus reality. I'm seeing like a real thing. I'm seeing because other people can see it and track it the same way I can. So there's definitely, I think, I don't know, a lot of mental health things, it seems to be like this removal from reality. What I'm doing is absolutely the opposite, where I'm so present, so in reality in order to see energy. And there's also, I think some people are very open to it as well, but they are like, their energy is bad. And I think that I think that we're blocked as human beings. Like, I think this is something that I've talked about with somebody else, but it seems like our third eyes and like our crown chakras and stuff, like, and they're supposed to open and close naturally as well. But you can definitely blow them open. Like my friend, the one that sees energy through a screen, she took DMT and she blew her third eye chakra open on DMT. She sees stuff so clearly, but her energy isn't like, she's an amazing person, but she's not like, she doesn't have to. For me to see energy very clearly, I have to be in a loving and present state, and then it opens itself naturally. For her, she sees it even if she's like terrified. And that is a problem because she can see stuff that's really dark and it's scary to her, and she's not protected from it the same way. I feel like if you don't see it, it's not as scary. And so like it's horrifying to be able to see that there's like something attached to your head, and she's going, like, she's gone into like these fear loops before with that. um so I think that some people are very, very open, but their energy isn't like, not that it's, it can't be better, right? Like it can't get raised. It's not like but but at that point in their life, they're scared, they're angry, like they have some kind of trauma, they have like these holes in their aura, and they are letting things in, and they can't like cut it off. Like they're too open to it.
Well, okay. Let's take a person like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have certain things all the time, but like now, I can see your aurora, and you are bright, shiny gold in a very bright, bright, bright purple. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all around you, the outline of your body. And I can do this with some people, but not all. And I know some things about you before you even speak of it. And there's some things I can tell that's going to happen before it happens. Now, why, as a guy like me, have certain abilities to do that? What does that tell you?
Well, I can feel your energy. I can tell that, and also I've observed you, right, in the show that we did before, and I've talked to you a bit now, and I feel like you're very present, you're very in the moment. You don't have a lot of fear. Maybe that comes from your cop background as well, and your reverend background. Like you just go into these shows and you're just like, yeah, I'm doing it, and you're just like,
Yeah, let's let it roll. Absolutely.
you're not worried about it. You're not controlled by your fear, and that's a huge thing of me, like for my, like having that mental state, right? Because it's based on being relaxed, being loving, being present. The loving can also be like being grateful, but being just present in the moment, and not being controlled by a fear or by an anger, by some kind of lower emotion, and then just feeling grateful and feeling, if it is a moment, at least that's somewhat joyous, feeling joy at being alive, and grateful to be alive, and loving towards everyone. And so I feel like you have a lot of that, and I feel like you're also you're not afraid, you're living your truth, you're on the path that you're supposed to be on. So I'm not surprised that you'd naturally be open to it. I do think that there's a genetic component to stuff as well, and but I think that, so I'm not sure exactly, honestly. I know that what I'm going to talk about, right, what I do, everybody can do this if they just feel the three things that I mentioned, right? Present, relaxed, and loving. You can follow God and be on God's path and be, everything you do will be charmed, will be blessed, will be the path that you're supposed to be on. And the other thing is not having a lot of mental chatter going on. I don't know about seeing energy. So for me, that happened naturally when I started meditating, when I started having these experiences of divine love, of just feeling love and feeling present. I would just naturally begin to see energy. I think maybe some people just genetically are not predisposed for that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that everybody receives the intuition, the insight that they need when they're in that mental state. Like you will know the things that you need to know in the moment that you need to know them.
Yeah, because it drives people nuts. Now, Bobby Dizzle says he talked to a guy last night that has been in a coma and could see shadow people and ghosts after he came out. I think that was his experiences were similar to how the thin veil is for kids who see ghosts. So that's a different way to look at things.
Yeah, that definitely happens. A lot of people come back from near-death experiences and are psychic after that point. That's a very common thing to have happen.
Yeah, it really
I
is.
have a shadow person of a type in my story. So
All right.
not the standard shadow person, I don't think. So.
All right. Take us to there.
So, all right, let's so I was not a believer. In my biography, if you guys read my biography, I make a really big deal about being lonely and stuff, and that's because I was being controlled by fear, and that's going to kind of come up later. And so I wanted to sort of start that, like set that scene for you. I started, so I graduated college and I started researching UFOs more than I had before. Because of my friend, I started listening to old Coast to Coast episodes with Art Bell.
Oh yeah.
Art Bell, yes. I love that you say from coast to coast, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And I started listening to this podcast, Last Podcast on the Left, and they do a lot of true crime, but they also cover some paranormal topics. And basically, I started immersing myself more in the world of the paranormal, and I can rep some like UFO books that I really like. I already told Grizzly, but UFOs and Nukes by Robert Hastings. If you're on the fence about UFOs, read that book. Has almost 150 or over 150 accounts from military personnel of UFOs basically messing with nuclear missile sites. So silos. And then the other book that I thought was really interesting was Hunt for Zero Point by Nick Cook, and it's about the propulsion system of UFOs. So it is him going on this kind of wild goose chase, looking into that technology, researching the Nazis. They built this thing called the Bell. They had UFOs, researching that. But he also finds diagrams. He finds schematics for this thing that creates infinite energy. It's really intense. And he is a aviation journalist. He is a dyed-in-the-wool skeptic when he starts this journey, and he ends up finding just the most incredible things. So you should read that book. It can also manipulate time, so very cool stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Just got to do that little bit of. Anyway, so I started researching stuff, and I started realizing, yeah, I think that there's something to this. Like, there's just too much out there. Like, there's too many accounts. Like there's something going on here. I also was I would read stuff with cryptids, as well. And so I moved. I got a tarot deck just randomly, and I didn't think it worked. I was kind of messing with I did a spell thing at one point. It was just to sort of clear someone's open their eyes to a situation, but it didn't work. And I was like, I don't know about this, and so I ended up getting this tarot deck, and I started messing with this tarot deck, and it was so accurate. And I was like, what? There's no way that this can work, this doesn't make any sense. I also started reading about parapsychology.
Yes.
And parapsychology is so interesting, where basically your energy affects the probabilities, is how I'm going to put it, in the most simplest terms. Your consciousness affects the outcome of randomness there. So say they would have a random number generator, with just zeros and ones. If you focus your consciousness on it, there's something called the gluing effect. And all the zeros, it'll be 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1. The gluing effect will be 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. Because someone is focusing, the amount of numbers in a row will start to increase with the focusing of the consciousness. There's also all of these tests with psychics, reading cards. Not all of them are psychics. There's random people sometimes. And there'll be this thing where the probability of them getting stuff right is very small. However, when you average out all of these different studies together, it's a very, very highly significant that they're 5% more probable to get the right card than the wrong card. And so, and it's 0.0001% chance that it's by chance, right? That it's, and so very interesting stuff. It showed me that consciousness can affect energy. As well, I was also interested in quantum physics, regular physics. Double slit experiment is very interesting because when you observe it, the results change. There's a few other things that I found really interesting. And so I started to kind of think, well, maybe this is what's happening with the tarot cards, is somehow my consciousness, it's energy follows energy. So whatever my energy is at the time, these cards are following that energy pattern. Meanwhile, I started having these experiences kind of spontaneously. I just started doing this spontaneously. I would just do what I had been talking about before, and I just started. Even when I was in college, I remember I'd gone to the beach with my friends, and I was like, have you ever just been like present? And they all thought I was crazy. It was the beach at night. We're having this bonfire. It was very nice. And I was like, just looking out over the ocean. I was like, I just like feel so present in this moment right now. Like, I'm so happy, I'm so glad to be here. And so I had kind of had, I guess, a natural feeling for how that feels, to feel very like just, it's like you're very in your body. You're very like just in that moment of time, because present is very special. All time exists in the present. The present is the only thing that truly exists. I didn't know that at the time, but it's a very interesting thing. And so I started just working on feeling loving, feeling present, and being relaxed. And then when I did that, I realized that I could see energy. And I wasn't sure what I was seeing, because it looked kind of just like ripples. Sorry, the camera, I'm not good with this. It's like reversed. Ripples like on the ocean floor, but everywhere, like 3D everywhere, like this kind of like, neural network looking thing. It was very strange. And then I would see these like orbs, like these things darting through it really, really fast. And I was like, what's going on here? Why do I see these things? And I was like, am I crazy? I've even been to like an optometrist, and then like, because I started seeing sparks. I would see blue sparks and white sparks and like kind of gold sparks a lot. And I was like, what's going on? And I would see them when I thought certain things that were significant. I would kind of get a feeling, and I would get these bright sparks in my vision. And optometrist was like, what are you doing here? Like you just had an eye exam 5 years ago. You're really young. You shouldn't be even here. Like they were like not even nice about it. Anyway, and so I was also in a relationship at the time that was really not a bad relationship. So it was someone that I had been together with for maybe 3 years at that point. And we got along. We did fight a lot at first, but it kept getting better. He really, really loved me. We kept learning how to be better together, like how to work on things, how to communicate. We had similar interests. I like to read a lot. He was really, we met through like a bookstore. He was really, he's an extremely intelligent person. He had a really good job. It's funny, I'd actually started dating him when he was unemployed, and not in a good headspace. And then as I dated him, he got like an amazing like job making like 6 figures and whatever. And he wanted to marry me and take care of me. And I wanted to start a business. I wanted to start this, I'll tell you, I'm kind of in the science research field, and I like entomology. So secret identity is blown now.
Right on.
And so I really liked outreach. I wanted to start this nature outreach nonprofit and go out and have like a band or something, set up like a tent in a parking lot and like teach kids about insects, like teach homeowners about, invasive ferns and stuff. I had all these ideas for this like outreach, this nonprofit. And he was like willing to finance that for me. He was willing to pay off my student loans for me. He wanted to marry me. And, and I loved him was the thing. Like I really felt love for him, and he, truly loved me, and I could feel that. And I knew that. But something just didn't feel right about the relationship. I just felt like something was missing, and I kept kind of beating myself up over it, where I was like, why don't I love him more? Like, what's wrong? Why am I not happy? Like, why, because, we would have a good time together, but I wasn't like, I don't know. It just felt like something was missing. It always felt a little lackluster in a way. And so I was just like struggling with that, and I was really afraid to be alone. And, you guys read my super sad, like, poor me biography thing, but I had been alone for so long. He was really my only friend at the time. My other friend had left that I had made in the place that I was living. And I was like, I don't want to, lose him as a friend, as well. And um, partially from the cards, but also just I started to get more and more in touch with my intuition. I started doing something. I would go out. I wasn't working that much. I was only working 30 hours a week, and then I would work on the weekends sometimes. But I had a good amount of time to myself at that point in my life. And so at twilight, I would go outside and I would like lay out a blanket, or I would just sit outside and I would watch. I love sunrise and sunset, and I would watch the sunset, and I would just look at the sky, and I would like put myself in this meditative state where I felt very present, relaxed. I would try to keep my mind still. And when I did that, I could see all the energy like sparkling in the sky, and I could see things like going through the sky. And so I would just watch it. I would just like watch the sky. And then I would also see things I think it's like the energy of the earth, like all the gold energy kind of like waving up from the earth would start to get more present. And I would see things like I saw like a little, I want to say it was a man, but I only saw, it's like an energy blob. But it was like yay big, and it walked like a man. I was sitting on this tree stump, and he walked, and he hopped up on the tree stump and like sat next to me.
Oh my gosh.
It was really cool. And so I started to have more and more of a feeling that I needed to leave this person, that there was something else out there for me, and I was just struggling with it. And so I'm actually going to back up. All right. I'm sorry. My story's going to be a little disjointed because my memory's a little disjointed. So struggling with seeing energy. And my breakthrough moment on realizing that what I saw was real was I was doing this art project, and I was making this mold of this ant nest, and it was sealed with this sealant that is very toxic. Okay, you're supposed to let it dry outside, and so it had been outside. I brought it inside, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hit it with like this heat pen and see if it is dry yet. And I started hitting it, and I was standing in my kitchen, and I noticed it was evaporating. And I'm like, crap. I'm like, I should really stop hitting this with this heat pen. That's a really bad idea. It's probably making toxic fumes. This like goes through my head, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep hitting it with a heat pen. And I see this orb come out and hit my head and knock my head into these kitchen cabinets, like a good foot, like hard into the cabinets. And I was like, oh, okay. I'll go outside, I guess.
You have been warned.
Huh?
I said, you have been warned.
I've been warned. Yeah. And I was like, I guess, thank you. It was dark, but it did something good. And so I was like, okay, thanks, I guess, And so also kind of in this time frame before when I was discussing, I started seeing these sparks, and I started to realize that I could, when I picked tarot cards, I would feel pressure with my left hand. The book I had read, I don't really do this the same way anymore, but it was like, oh, you should like circle your left hand 3 times, and then, you pick it with the left hand. It's like the sensitive one. And so I would pick tarot cards with my left hand, and I could feel also like the tarot cards, like the energy off the card. Like sometimes it would be like, oh, it feels like fiery, or it feels sad, and I would flip it. Sometimes I would just test myself with cards, right? And so I was like, wait, so I can feel the tarot card to pick. Why can't I feel other stuff? Like, why can't I use this same pressure sensing ability to do other things? And so I started looking for things. And so that was when I had told Grizzly. So like my cat, I would go out in the backyard, and I would like spin around, and I would try to stop where he was, and I'd be able to stop because I could feel like his energy like coming off of my cat. And I remember I did this thing where I was outside, and I was like meditating, and there's all these mosquitoes around, right? Because it's Florida. And I tried to just like relax, and not be worried about the mosquitoes. And I actually could see them as like little spots of blue light. And I closed my eyes and I was able to kill mosquitoes. My eyes closed, which was so cool. um, so the stuff starts like picking up, right? And I'm like, wow, like I can really do stuff. Like, something's really crazy. I started looking for like pets, like lost pets. And I was getting really close with stuff, and I could find my way. Like I found my way to somebody's house, that I hadn't. I was able to like know which way to turn based on the pressure sensing, and so I was like getting more and more in touch with my intuition and with this sense. And so then this feeling like I need to break up with my boyfriend. I need to break up with my boyfriend. But why? Like I'm okay. It's good. It's gonna be fine. Like everything. Whatever. But I just knew. And so it was really hard for me. I kind of false broke up with him a number of times, and then took him back because he would ask me to take him back. All right. I'm not gonna try to talk over that, dude. And so one day, I really did it. I was like, I had done it, and I was so upset, and I was actually like almost suicidal. And then I took him back again, like a day or so later. And then I was like, I can't do this. I'm like, I have to do it again. And so I broke up with him again, and again, I was so sad. Like I was just like crying for days. Like I was just like completely devastated by this because I really loved him, as well. But it was just this like deep inner knowing. And then I woke up one day, a couple days later, and I was like, like the sun is so bright. The birds are singing. It's so nice, like this day is so nice. And, yeah, I'm alone. But I'm really happy just to be alive, just to be in this world.
It's great to be in this world.
It is great to be in the world.
I'll tell you what, it's great to be alive.
It is.
50 years old.
Yeah.
It's great to be alive. I feel like
Oh, Lord. That's liquid courage there.
It's okay.
That's all right. At least he was nice.
It was a minute. Yeah, no, it's okay.
So somebody asked you a question. It says, I know about shadow entities. Some, but do you see their energy at all?
Honestly, no. I don't think so. I don't see stuff I don't usually see things that are human shaped. So I usually see things as like more of like blobs. It depends. I have seen things that have different shapes or have more definitive shapes. But I don't see shadow people. I had a time where I was in the middle world, if you know what that is, and I did have an experience with something that was similar to a shadow person. But it's not the same as the shadow people stories that I've heard. I think that there are different, I was talking to Grizzly about this before, different channels basically that you can see things on. And I'm on like a certain channel, and the shadow people are on like a different channel. And I only see energy very clearly when I'm in a certain mental state, which is kind of like a protected mental state in a way. So I can see ghosts, but not as people. I see them again as just like kind of energy, more of like an orb type energy. So I don't see their representation of who they used to be. I just see their energy. Auras, I don't generally see colors with auras. I do see energy around people, but it's like clear for the most part. It's just kind of like a shimmer. It's kind of like a heat wave, like the heat off of like a road or something. Right. It's like that. It's like this distortion. Some of the entities will have different colors that are very clear that are associated with them, but people, I don't see color with their auras. So sun was shining. I went outside and I felt like I was just in love, like in just the deepest, most profound love. But it was just for the world. It was just for like existence as a whole. Oh gosh, I have to back up again. No, I thought I was going to have to do this. So I'm going to tell you Psychic Week, and then I'm going to go back to Starseed transmissions. And so I felt God. I really feel like I felt God. I felt love for just the whole world, like every single person in the world. Like the love was so big, I felt like it almost burned me out. Like it was just the most love that like my body could handle, could take, almost. Like it was such an intense, profound feeling. And it launched me into this thing that I termed Psychic Week, where I was so sensitive to energy in a way that I had never been before. Every single thing around me I could feel. Like I broke a light bulb. I could feel every shard of glass. Like I was vacuuming it up and I was like, oh, there's gonna be some glass over there. I go over it and there's like glass. It's like these tiny little clear shards of glass. And I was able to get every single shard of glass because I just knew. I just felt the glass. I was working, this isn't the feeling thing, but I was working with like a lab mate and she started to explain something. And before she started to explain it, I saw this like fully formed image. I actually saw the energy come out of her, hit me. I saw this like fully formed image. And then she explained what I had just seen. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess I can like do that. This is actually a really fun thing for anyone to do. Go into a thrift store and kind of like, you don't have to like close your eyes, but like kind of half close your eyes. Try not to like pay attention to what you're seeing and just feel your way to like the thing that you're supposed to find in the store. So I did that and I went to this religious section. I wasn't religious and I pulled out Awakening Your Psychic Powers by Edgar Cayce. I was like, oh, hey. And I also found some other cool stuff in the thrift store. You know, went to this one thrift store and I'm like, the energy in here is really bad. Turns out the person working was just such a bad mood, like just such an unhappy person. And it just had permeated like the whole store. Again, thrift storing was with my mom. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I can like find her. I could also feel like the things. I could feel like the sadness from like the medical, like the old casts and the medical equipment, and you know, everything in the store had this feeling associated with it. And so I was like, oh, my mom's like down this aisle, and I looked down the aisle and my mom's not there. Why is my mom not there? And then I'm like staring and she moves and she had been holding this lamp in front of her head, and so it like blocked her head. I was like, oh yeah, that's her, cool. But the experience of this was feeling this love energy, and it felt like I was in an orchestra and every single thing around me was in sync. It was like playing this part, you know, and everything else is playing its part, and everything is just like working out, like everything. And there was another thing where I was driving and there was an accident, and I felt I was following this energy the whole time. I could just feel this energy, like this beautiful, bright, loving feeling. And I felt the energy path that I had just been following driving suddenly divert. And my house was like right up there, like right on the corner. And I was like, why am I going to go that way? Okay. And so I went, and there was an accident right there that I had like diverted around. And I had trusted it. I had trusted this feeling. And so it got so intense that I was starting to have a hard time with it. And this was kind of when I realized something that I feel like does work very well, which is salt. Certain things I don't really put a lot of stock in, like material, you know, things that psychics use for their trade. I think you can do well energetically. But I made a salt circle during that time, and I stepped in it, and honestly I could still feel, and the salt circle was perfect because I just followed the energy and I made this perfect circle with salt. But it did dampen it quite a bit, and it was such a relief to just be in the circle and just not feel everything so intensely. And so this lasted about a week, and it started to fade. I didn't feel as I was in love anymore. I could still, do the thing. I could still feel the pressure, but I wasn't on that super bright wavelength anymore. I didn't have that love feeling. I could still try to like put myself present, try to quiet my mind, but it wasn't as intense. And I had started, there was this other guy that I had liked. And I started kind of like being like, oh, I wish I could be with this guy, and I wasn't just happy anymore to be alive and to be existing. Now I wanted things again. Like I was like, looking forward to something else. I was getting more worried about stuff. I wasn't just trusting God. I wasn't just trusting that everything was going to work out. And so, I'm going to tell you really quick about starseed transmissions. So before Psychic Week, I had gone and I had gone into a used bookstore, and someone had been in the New Age section, which I wasn't even a really New Age person, but UFO books are there, stuff I like is there, right? And so I was like, oh, well, I like fiction, I'm going to go to sci-fi. And so I went to the sci-fi section, and I was like, ooh, I don't want to use my like hand pressure trick thing, or, I'll just like put myself in this present meditative, state. Because I was kind of getting used to that at that point to find things. And so I did that, and this book was just like vibrating, like it was so intense, like this compulsion to go over and look at this book. So I went over, and it was this book, the Starseed Transmissions. And I was like, what's this book? I guess this is like a sci-fi book. And it start flipping through it, and it's like God and like Jesus, and it's like the end is coming kind of stuff. And I'm like, what is this? This is really kooky and weird. It's like, oh, it's channeled by an angel. I was like, I'm not into this, like I'm kind of secular. I don't know about all this stuff. And I didn't want to get the book, but it was $3.50. And it was like, everything in me was like, get the book, get the book, get the book. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to get the book. The guy at the counter, he's going to judge me. He's going to be like, she's getting this weird channeled book. Like this girl's a kook, And so I'm like, oh, but it's $3.50. And I'm like, I'll just do it. I'm like, I like weird stuff, like whatever. If you ask me, I'll just be like, oh, it was weird. I'm just getting it because it's weird. Something like that. I was like, and I wasn't really like that. I was like, well, I'm not going to let this guy, in his judgment, affect me. I'm going to fix my hair because it's falling down. Sorry, guys. And so I went, I get the book. The dude didn't say anything. Not a big deal. And I went and I put it on my shelf. Because sometimes I just buy books because I like having books, and I'm like, I'm going to read this one day, right? Like I have a lot of books. I read a lot of books too, but you can't, it's there's a word for it, but it's like your library of things to read, like a library shouldn't all be things that you've read. There should also be things there that you're planning on reading. And so the stuff goes on the shelf. One day, this is after Psychic Week. Okay. I go and I feel this book just calling out to me from the bookshelf. It's like, read me. Okay, I'll read the book, right? And so I go and I start reading the book. And I swear, it's like, if I used to watch anime a lot, and it's like I was like a magic girl in an anime, like in a transformation scene or something, where I just see sparks and energy just swirling around me as I'm reading this book. Like it's so intense. And I'm reading this thing and I'm just getting like chills, like constantly, like these chills and these intense waves of emotion where I am like crying, like at parts, like crying in like this ecstasy, like not in fear, but just it hit so hard, some of the things that it was talking about. And it was exactly how I had felt during Psychic Week. So it talks about this this idea of being in an orchestra. It talks when you're with God, and it talks about being present. It talks about how the present is the only moment that truly exists. Like God is in the present. And every time you're in the past or the future, you're not with God. and you're actually in a weird way, you're in the future or you're in the past, but God is like not there in that. And it talks so much about love, and it talks about trusting your intuition, being loving, feeling joy about how the creator is joyous, and we should feel joy and happiness to be alive. Like, we should take it, not that things aren't meant to be taken seriously ever, but we should find pleasure in our existence and in these moments, and that when we do, we are fully merged with our souls. It's there's a lot to this book, and I think we could honestly do a whole episode on this book and really go into it, because I had written some stuff down as well, and I want to read one particular thing because it scared me. It's about the end of it's about the change that's coming. It's not the end of the world. It's a change that's coming, and so I'm going to just read this really quick because it sets up why all of these things set up how I kind of like got so my story goes really off the rails, and this is like partially why it goes off the rails. Okay. And it's also very important. So it says your individual birth will take place at the precise moment in linear time when you stop struggling with your rational fear patterns and let yourself go in the divine dance of inner direction, releasing all subjective definitions of who you are. So it's talking about releasing your ego, essentially, like your identity, and letting yourself go in this divine dance of inner direction, which is how I had felt during Psychic Week. Like, I had just felt like I was like receptive to the universe. I was just in the universe, and all I had to do was just follow that energy, just do what felt natural to me, what felt right. And, every light would turn green, every hole that I drilled into the wall was perfectly straight, and I'm terrible at doing that. It was actually like a thing where I was screwing in these screws, and it was very difficult, but they went in like perfectly. Anyway, but things like that, like everything would just flow. And so it says you must decide whether you're going to accept the inevitable, because this is talking now about the change that's coming. So this book, I'm sorry, I'm going to backtrack again. This book talks about, it says at the moment of creation, okay, so it talks about how, let me backtrack again. It talks about how we are God's awareness. It says that God exists in everything, but we are the conscious, like we are his points of awareness. And each one of us is a point of awareness of God. So God is, surrounding and permeating everything, right? But like we're like this focused attention. And we're all one. We're all together. And we're all part of God. Doesn't mean that we are, I'm God, I'm going to do everything God does, because all I know is what I know is my subjective experience. I'm still not, none of us are at that level. The very fact that we're bounded by, these material bodies prevents us from knowing every single thing. But we are these reflections of God, and we're connected to God, and we're all one thing. And how this wave of love essentially is moving through the universe, and it is like this intense, it's God's awareness again, but it's like this extremely intense, like very powerful feeling. And that when it hits Earth, it's going to cause our birth. That this whole period of time has been this gestational period for humanity. And that we're not fully in touch with who we are, because half of us is with God all the time, but we don't really feel that. We think that we are just like these identities, these matter bodies. And so once this thing comes and hits, that we will awaken to our divinity, and we will look upon each other, and we will all realize that we're one thing. And we will have, essentially everyone will be psychic, is kind of like, this is my phrasing of it, but that's how I felt during that week. And this is how it talks about, like, in that it's going to be like an orchestra, and you just follow your path. You still have free will, and what you want to do will be your path, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like you're being forced, I was like, but it's, this will be your natural direction, and you just follow it, and you will be, like, you will follow your natural purpose. We'll all awake to our purpose, and we'll all be greater than anything that you could imagine, and that everything, all of these kind of natural laws will be suspended, because it also says that this wave is a moment of non-time. So the present is like a moment of non-time. This is a better way to put it. This is more accurate. All time exists in the present. And this wave that's coming, so the universe is expanding. And basically this is the wave of contraction. And just like a pendulum will go up and then it will pause for a second before it goes back down. Think of the expanding and the contracting. Time will stop as this wave of love hits us, this wave of God. And in that moment, an eternity will take place. And so this is what it's talking about in this passage that I'm reading, that I segued out of. So I'm going to go back into it. You must decide whether you're going to accept the inevitable in a state of love and prepare yourself accordingly, or hold on in fear until the bitter end. Ultimately, these are the only two avenues of response. By the linear time this event takes place, humanity will be polarized according to these two adaptive patterns. All will be decidedly in one camp or another. To those of the human race who have tuned themselves into the will of God, the coming interval of non-time will literally expand into eternity. These individuals will be able to experience a lifetime or many lifetimes in that eternity, while still retaining the option to return to their physical projections as transformed representatives of the being of life on Earth. These will be our co-workers during the period of planetary awakening. Others, not so finely tuned to the forces that will be released at the time, will feel great surges of energy lasting for an indeterminate period. Some few will experience an intense fear, and many will die. The time of separation has come. There are but two roads before you. You can walk in the innocence of those who trust in the Lord, or perish in the collapse of your rational systems. The choice, as it always has been, is yours. And so, very secular. I was like, I don't really think the end of the world is coming. But what is this? I was just like floored by this book. And it wasn't just the fact that someone had written this book. It was the fact that I had such an intense reaction to it. After I read the book, it's a really quick read. It's like a 2-hour read. I'm very cold. Sorry if I'm shaking a little bit. I went to bed and I had a hard time sleeping. And it was because my bed was surrounded by these beings of light. And they were so bright. They were so bright. They were keeping me awake. And I just knew that something was so important about this. And it had lined up so well with my experience. And I knew that there was something to it. And even though the book talks about that this isn't going to take away our free will, that we're going to want this to happen, that this is going to be a joyous period, a period of rebuilding the planet that'll last for 1,000 years, and all these wonderful things. I was like, but many are going to die. People are going to experience intense fear, some of them. This doesn't sound good. This sounds kind of like it's taking away our free will. Like it says it's not taking away our free will. But what is this thing? This thing, it claims it came from God. came down, somebody channeled it. I'm like, clearly there's something here, that I'm supposed to understand and respond to. That's true. But I started to have this idea that that love was a part of God, but that God wasn't entirely love, if that makes sense. That God was comprised of more than love. And that this message was from love, but wasn't necessarily from God. And this led me down a crazy road. But I'm going to kind of go back and tell it chronologically, okay?
Okay.
I wish I hadn't gotten so cold.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, my teeth are chattering. Okay. So I didn't know what to make of the book. I kind of did what I did with UFOs to a degree, where I took the stuff I wanted to from the book. I was like, this makes the orchestra stuff makes sense. The loving, the being present, awakening to your inner spirit, all of us being connected. All of this sounds really, really good. I don't know about the end of the world stuff. I'm not going to worry about it. I switched jobs, had an amazing interview, and I knew during the interview I was like, I'm going to get this job. Got offered the job. My boss cut the interview short. He was like, I had more questions, but I don't think I need to ask them anymore. And basically hired me on the spot during the interview. There was one other, and he was like, no, you're basically it. Okay, cool. Switched jobs, got very consumed with my new job. When I first moved into the place, so I had to move to switch jobs. First night, I'm sleeping on the couch because I just moved, and my mattress is blocked by a bunch of furniture. Okay. And I feel this weight on me when I wake up, and I feel these hands on my throat. It doesn't feel very good. And so I am it's kind of that half asleep thing, but I can move. I don't have sleep paralysis. Oh gosh, so I missed something. Okay, before I moved, how much time do we have? Okay.
Anytime you want.
Okay, I got it. So before I moved, I kept seeing things in the other house, right? The first house. And I heard something. So I would get these feelings. And one night I could talk to this and feel yes or no answers from it. And I think I actually was also getting a verbal thing at that point. And I realized it was a ghost. And I became convinced that I had a ghost in my house. And I had also pulled a book randomly off the shelf. It was House of Spirits by Isabel Allende, and some various things that happened that were my subconscious talking to me, telling me, hey, there's a ghost here. There's a ghost here. And so I had read in some book to do this. And so I felt very loving towards the ghost, and I imagined a doorway of light. And it was very hard to make myself feel so pure and loving towards this. That was the hardest thing. And, I went outside. I was like, come outside with me. And I released this ghost through this doorway of light. Okay. I really felt it leave. And so I knew I wasn't 100% sure, right? Because I was like, did I really do that? Was I crazy? What was I hearing? What was this message? What's going on? But, I didn't really I was still seeing other things. And that was the thing, is I was seeing a lot of different energy. And I was like, well, maybe it's still here. But it seemed like whatever it had been there was gone. There was still stuff going on, but that thing I felt was gone. And I didn't really feel it the same way. So when new place, sleeping, wake up, something on my throat. So sit up, and I'm do what I've been taught to do, because I was taught that if you feel love, you're protected. Red Elk talks about this. I love Red Elk from Coast to Coast. He embodies the spirit of the creator so well, with just having this boundless joy and enthusiasm for life. Like, he is such a fun person. And he talks about loving everyone. And even loving, like, he has this story where he wakes up and Satan's in the room with him, and he's like, and Satan's trying to scare him, and he's like, oh, I'm not scared of you, I love you. And he has to leave because he can't handle that love that Red Elk has. And so I had this in my mind. I was like, okay, if I just love it, it'll be good. So I sit up and I wrap my arms around it and I just love it, and it goes away. Okay. A couple nights later, wake up, same thing. Because I do the same thing, and I'm scared. Like, I'm really freaked out because I don't know what's going on. I don't, some months ago had come to terms with the fact that this stuff was real, but I still don't really know what it is, or what I'm doing. So I did that again, and it didn't do that to me ever again after that point. It stopped trying to sit on me in the middle of the night. And so then going back to where I was, very consumed with my job for about 6 months. Nothing super weird happened, basically, other than that. Still saw energy, but just kind of ignored it for the most part. Still kind of trying to be present, trying to be loving as much as possible. But wasn't really doing anything else. And then I'm trying to think. There was another, I joined this psychic group online, this psychic Facebook group. And there had been, I knew that there was a ghost in this house and I hadn't released it. And I started trying to release it again. But I'm doing this doorway to light thing, and it's not really like, I know it's not working. I can tell it's not working. And I'm like really frustrated by this. And so I end up talking to this girl in this group. Let's just call her V. And she teaches me to imagine a beam of white light coming down. I don't think she really stressed the love. She wasn't into the love thing, but I was like, no, there has to be love there. Like, I know that, like, I just feel that, and to imagine it kind of sucking up the ghost and then going up. And so I'm like, okay. And she's like very psychic. And she also tells me, she's like, oh, your guides are talking to me and they're telling me, you need to take this more seriously. You're not doing enough, whatever. Things are like, it's very important that you start, working on your gift more, yada, yada. I'm like, oh, okay. And so, I do this technique, and I tried it a few times because I'm not used to doing visualizations. And so it's kind of hard for me to visualize it. But I visualize it, and then I pull a tarot card, and it's the star, which is my card. And so, and that card, to kind of segue, it's about being a bridge between the divine and the material, which is also what Starseed Transmissions talks about what we are. And so I'm like, oh my God, I must have done it. And as I'm doing this, because it had taken me some tries to do it. And then as I did it for real, I saw this just like blue static all in the room after I released this ghost. And it was really present. It was very strong. And so I was like, okay, I guess I did it, like I feel like I did it. And I felt like it was almost like a splinter had been removed. Like it was like this thing that was out of place is gone now. I felt really good. And so I was like, awesome. And because I said the thing about her saying, you have to take it seriously, something else happened. It was like a couple days before that or after that, where I had gotten, somebody I had met did my chart. She was really into astrology. I'm not into astrology. And she was like, oh, I want to do your chart, whatever. Okay, cool. And she did my chart, and she's like, Elise, you have a great destiny. She's like, the way your stars, your planets are aligned, you have a great destiny. Like, you have clear psychic gifts with your Neptune and your Pluto when they're in conjunction with your whatever. I was like, okay. And I'm like, that's cool. And you know, I liked that this like older new age lady's like, you have a great destiny, because I kind of like looked at her. I'm like, oh, this is like my old wizard, you know, like coming to me. So, you know, she would look like that, but it was very fun. So, and when I did this thing with this light, with this ghost, I felt the light, and it felt so high. Like the energy of it felt so high, and I could feel, as I released the ghost, the energy of the ghost rising, the frequency of it rising, and it kind of getting pushed through this like veil. Like there was like this little push, and then it was like shoop, and it was like it almost like went out of earshot. I almost like followed it up out of earshot and then disconnected from it. And so I feel like touching that white light did something that hadn't happened before, because things just took off so hard after that point. And also the fact that I had started talking to V, and she was I ended up having disagreement with her because she didn't really want to be alive. So she's autistic. And she says that she is autistic, she'd been told, because she didn't want to be born. And she naturally astral travels quite a lot and is very familiar with like the astral realms. And she's like, oh, like I just love the astral realms. I don't want to be on Earth. And I felt like this was really wrong. And I was like, you should try to, you know, I know you're autistic. She wasn't like severely autistic. And I'm like, and I'm sure that this is hard, you know, but you should still try to love your life. Like you should still try to be grateful to be here. But she just was really like, she didn't like her body. She didn't like, you know, being human, essentially. She liked, you know, she used to be a cat. She liked being a cat more, and she just liked being on what she called the other side. She also didn't believe in God. She was very like, had a really hard time with Christianity because of bad experiences growing up, people proselytizing at her and trying to convert her. And so she, trying to think what word she would use for it, but you know, something like source. She didn't say source. So I started like putting myself in I started to have this sense of like a psychic state, a psychic mind state, and it became much more finely honed. And I was like, there's something to this white light, this very high vibrational energy, but also I felt like this other thing where I would go down. I would go so deep down into myself. And it was almost like these two opposites. And I started to do this thing where I felt like, I called it soothsaying. And I would take a statement and I would take it down with me. As I like went, I just like relaxed, and I felt loving, and I felt so relaxed, like so incredibly relaxed. It was the opposite of being present. It was being like so, like it was like this expansion. It's almost like when you relax, you like expand, but you're not necessarily always present when you're relaxed, right? And so I would start to take it down, and I felt like it was like if you have like an ocean and you have like something that you're diving with. It's either like has, you know, it's lighter than water and it's going to kind of bob to the surface, or it's like heavier than water, it's going to sink. And the truth would sink down all the way. And then a lie would kind of bob to the surface, and it would be harder to push down. And so I started doing this, and I started trying to figure out the nature of the universe. So I'm like, obviously that's the most important thing to do with this like ability, right? Like this is so cool. I can like, I have all these cool things that are happening. I started trying to use like doing telekinesis. I'm still trying to, I'm going to get that telekinesis.
That'd be great.
Because I mean, it's possible. I know it's possible because I see spirits move things. I know if spirits can move things, I can move things. And Uri Geller can bend spoons, and I know that's true. And the woman that did my chart knew Uri Geller, or her husband worked with Uri Geller and saw him bend spoons. Like, I know he could bend spoons. And so, oh gosh, she was saying, okay, so I started doing this, and I was like almost like manic like state at this point because I was so just like excited about what was happening to me. Like, I was like doing all of these things, and I would stay up very late, and I was texting Valerie a lot and like asking her all these different questions, you know, about energy, because she was like the first like real psychic I could say. Oh, I just said her name by mistake. Oops. I knew I was gonna do that. Oh God, it's okay. And so one night I was like so deep, and I was also so present, and I felt like my frame rate was so high, if that makes sense, is how I described it to her. Like, it was like every single moment was so like long, and I was so like all the energy was so incredibly clear to me. And I saw this spirit that was blue, and it came to me, and it loved me. And the love that I felt from the spirit was stronger than anything I'd ever felt in my entire life before. And it was like pure love, like true love. And it loved me so much. And I just like trusted it. And he talked to me. And it wasn't verbal, but it was like through just impulse. And I could kind of get it because I was so in tune at that moment. And he said that he wanted to make a conduit with me, that he was my twin flame. He said he was my twin flame, and that he wanted that we were split, and that in order to be like together again, he was going to make a conduit with me. And I was like, what? And I'm like, this sounds really weird. And he wanted my permission to do it. And as he talked to me, it was like weird because I could feel my higher self, you know, my soul, my whatever you want to call it. It was like it was responding, and I could like, but it was like almost like I was muted when it was responding. Like, I could feel it saying yes, but it was like they were having a conversation, and I could only hear like some of it. And sometimes they would like mute me, like, no, you can't hear this bit. Okay, you can hear this part now. And it was like this thing was being negotiated, like this contract. And I was like slightly privy to it, but not all the way. And so, but I felt this just trust towards him. And so I was like, this seems really bad. I don't really truck with spirits because I wanted to work with God. And that was all I wanted to work with. But I kind of came up with this weird contract where I was like, okay, you know, if either of us wants to get out of this at any point, the conduit can be reversed, and you know, it has to be, I think it was like for my highest good, something like along those lines, right? And he was like, okay, yes. And so I was like, okay, do the conduit. And he like jumped into me, and I felt so. It was very late at night. I was tired, and I felt suddenly so awake and so vibrant from this thing. And then he ended up leaving, and I went to bed. And kind of meanwhile, this stuff is happening. I think this was like around this point. I remember I started also having a lot of experiences of love. This had already started in Gainesville, I'm not doing good with my secret identity stuff now. This had already started at the previous city I was in. But I would feel like this very powerful love, but I would also feel like this kind of merging thing happen. And I felt like my heart was being opened, was how I felt, like so much. And I had this like experience where I looked at the sky, and I was using, I say connect. And so when I connect with something, like even just looking at something, everybody can do this. You can feel the energy of the thing that you're focusing on. Whenever you look and pay attention to something, you're like pick up some of that energy. And so, but I would deliberately connect to things as well. And so, like I connected to the sky, and the sky felt so good. It was like God, but it was blue. And I loved the sky. Like I just loved it so much. And I thought about a world where there's no sky. I love the sky. And I just started crying. Like I would just, and this was like happening to me a lot with different things where I just would just feel these overwhelming like gratitude. And I would just like start, and I was just crying like over the sky, and I felt so good. And I remember I went and I talked to Valerie, and she's like, wow, your energy is so different. And I'm like, oh, it's because I was like connected to the sky. You should connect to the sky. Oh, it's so good. Like the energy is so good. Like feel it. You should feel it. You should come. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Like, all right, I don't do that. And so I started going kind of crazy releasing ghosts, and like just trying to release ghosts everywhere because I could see stuff. And so I started trying to release basically everything I could see. Okay. And sometimes it didn't seem to work very well, and I don't think they were all ghosts was the thing. But I was just basically trying to do what I had done with that ghost every single energy blob. Oh, it's showing up on the screen there. So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off. I just want to like tell it in the right order, because I also started getting really obsessed with the wave again. Remember the wave that I had talked about before? And so I had been really disturbed by it. And now that I started doing things again and could see things and feel things, very clearly again, and was paying a lot of attention to it, I was like, there's something wrong with the wave. And I realized that, and I had asked V, and she had said, at first she was like, no, I don't think that's a thing. And then she said that she had looked for it psychically, and she's like, yeah, there is actually a wave and it's coming. And then she said she had talked to somebody else and they also could see the wave. And so I was like, oh my God, this is like a real thing that's happening. And I started to worry that it shouldn't happen. And I also had realized that I could like manifest things very easily by saying them as just a pure thought impulse instead of like a verbal thought. And so I did this thing at one point, and after a lot of deliberation, and I was like, I'm going to reduce the wave, because I had been gotten that the wave was also going to knock out all spirits that weren't like with God, essentially. Like it was going to kill people that weren't with God, and it was going to knock out all spirits that weren't with God. And I was like really questioning free will and God and all of these things. And so things are about to pick up. I'm sorry I'm getting a little slow with this. And so I reduced the wave. I did this like manifestation thing, okay, and by saying it very, very quietly as pure thought impulse. And at that point, I was doing it differently than I do it now, and I was pushing it up. I would push it up and up and up out of earshot until I just felt that impulse. It was high. And I was like, I reduced it to 99.99999%. And I was like, okay, the wave will like, now it will make the world better. The world's obviously very fucked up. It'll fix all that. But if it's not at 100%, then it's not going to kill everybody. And I was told that it worked. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Awesome, the wave is done. But I was still like disturbed by it. And I was like, was that right? Like, is what I did right? And so, fun story now. I was at work. I wasn't doing anything. It was like kind of a slow week for me psychically. Okay, I hadn't done other stuff yet. And I went home. It was very late at night, and I was I was feeling really good though. I was feeling like really up and on, and I was like, yeah, I feel like better than I felt in a really long time. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna like, I just kind of just had this impulse where I was like, I'm gonna like play with my energy in the mirror because I could feel my energy reflected in the mirror, you know? And I was like, you know, a mirror, it's not just a mirror. Like I can feel my energy coming out of the mirror at me. That's so weird. And so I started just kind of like pushing and feeling the energy. Like I kind of felt the energy that was my energy in the mirror, and I was kind of like pulling and pushing it, and I was like, oh, this is really weird, you know, I can kind of like move this energy. And then I was up for like maybe 5 minutes, and I got up. And I was like, oh, I feel really dizzy. Like I feel really out of it now. Like I just don't feel present anymore, and I'm really, really tired. And so I kind of like, I think I ate a little something, and I even skipped dinner, and I went to bed. And so I wasn't asleep. I was like half, you know, it's that half asleep state. A lot of stuff happens to me in that state. And so I'm kind of falling asleep, lay on my back, and it's like I start hearing this thing. It's like a trippy, like chill, like hip hop beat. Okay, it's like very vibey. It's kind of dark. It's like a little sinister, but it's like cool. You know, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I see like this skull, and it has like a glowing orange and red eye, and there's like this smoke coming out of it. It's like this crystal skull. There's smoke coming out of its mouth and glowing eyes. Oh, yeah, it's just a dope dream. Like I'm into this, right? Like I'm like, yeah. And so, and then it's like, you know, there's like this kind of like impactful thing, and I see my ashtray, and there's like smoke curling up from it, and like ashtray. I'm like, okay, and it's like, and then there's this mirror, this standing mirror that's in the other room, and it's like my consciousness is now like watching that, and so this shadow comes out of the mirror. The shadow person comes out of the mirror, and starts walking towards my bedroom across the hall. I'm like, oh, that's weird, and then bam, I'm like back in my body, but there's someone laying next to me. And I feel this just as clearly as I feel the mattress and everything else. I feel this cold, bony hand slip into my hand. And I'm like, oh, that's really creepy. And so I kind of use my hand, and I'm like, I'm not going to let this thing scare me. And so I use my hand, and I kind of lever it over so that I like pull it on top of me, okay? Like that. And it's this person with a void for a face. And it's just this black swirling void, and it just starts like sucking at my face. Like it's like on top of me now. It's just like sucking at me. And I feel like it's like sucking my soul out of my body. And then I like kind of I feel this really cold and run through my body. And I like snap into like not the middle world at that point. And it's really it's really creepy. Like, it's really creepy. Okay. And I hear this knock on my wall. It's like, what? And so that was the start of
For emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of.
And so I go and I look at myself in the mirror.
The annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of class 4 and lower.
Where's that coming from?
It must be from you.
Oh, Shelby's like, you? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm listening. That was freaking me out. Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited.
Okay, cool. So my energy now is so bad, not now, but at the time now in the story, so bad in mirrors. Every time I look in a mirror, I feel like evil coming out of the mirror at me. And
Oh,
I'm like,
Lord.
what's going on? And I keep hearing knocking in my walls that wasn't there before. Right? I'm just like, what is this? I'm like, I made like an evil mirror version of myself, and it's like haunting me now.
Oh, my.
And so I like try to tell people online. They're like, what? You know, like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, this, I have a shadow, like, I made an evil mirror version of myself. Okay, so I try to like reverse it. You know, I do like my thought impulse thing, and I'm like, you know, whatever I did across time and space, you know, let it be reversed. You know, I want my mirror energy to be normal. Cars. I seal the mirror with like white light. You know, I seal all my mirrors. The mirror stuff did get better. Okay, I started to get better. I still don't like mirrors. I'm gonna be honest. I still like. I'm getting better with it.
Well, that's good.
Mirror PTSD. And I still feel my energy in mirror. It doesn't feel bad anymore, but I'm always afraid that I'm going to connect to it and like push it or pull it again. Like I'm going to do something with it. But the mirror thing came through because I start to question like Satan, okay, in this wave. And at one point I get this idea, and I'm not sure exactly how I got this idea at this point, but I get this idea that like Lucifer is about free will, okay, which kind of makes sense in a way. I'm not saying that it is, right? But at the time, I don't know anything about like theology, about whatever. And I'm like, well, you know, everything is, you know, Lucifer is like everything that's not God. And, you know, God, everything kind of follows this path, but like we have to have a choice. Otherwise, it makes everything not meaningful, you know. In this book, you know, Starseed Transmissions had talked about everything being joyous, everything being good. And I was like, that's wonderful, but like it doesn't sound real. Like the real world has hard edges. The real world is about pain, you know, and love. You have to have pain in order to make the love meaningful. Like you have to have a choice. Otherwise, your choice to be with God doesn't mean anything. And so I get this idea that I am supposed to put Lucifer in a mirror because
there's a movie about that now. Don't forget. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, what was that movie called when what's his name that does John Wick? What's his name? The actor in John Wick? Was it called Dimensions? Where he would go to people's places and trap the demons in the mirror and cast the mirrors out of the house or apartments and shatter them? Yes. There's actually a movie on that.
So
Constantine. That's what it's called.
Okay, I haven't. You know, I think I might have seen Constantine a long time ago.
Yeah.
My legs are falling asleep. All right. So, but
Canal Reeves. Kevin, Reeves. There we go.
Okay. So I get this idea that I have to do that, but I don't want to do it until the very end, right? But in the meantime, I'm questioning what God is because I'm thinking, okay, this wave thing, it's love, but God has got to be more than love because, you know, I'm thinking about like the Old Testament God, and I'm like, God is also about justice, you know, and there's also this Holy Ghost thing, and I feel it when I take that into me. And so I'm like, well, it makes sense that there would be like a Trinity, you know, like I kind of get this idea. It's this weird like take on Christianity that I was like going down, right? And I'm like, okay, well, it makes sense that there's a Trinity because there has to be like a tiebreaker, and basically like your ghost would be the tiebreaker of like a vote. But then there's like justice, right? This idea of like right and wrong, and sometimes rightful punishment. And then there's this idea of love and like forgiving all. And so I'm like, because I'm very scared. Once I started releasing ghosts, I was like, what if I'm not sending them to the right place? And I don't really know anything about the afterlife. I've read stuff with NDEs, I've read whatever, but like, you know, people have different experiences of the afterlife. And, you know, and maybe not everyone's supposed to go to the same place. Where am I supposed to send them? And I need to figure out, I start to feel this like impending pressure where I'm like, I have to figure out how to do this right. You know, and I had released ghosts like using, you know, Jesus, using God, and I was like, please send them, you know, to wherever they need to go. But I still wasn't sure that like what I was doing was right. I mean, that seems pretty foolproof, but I was really concerned with it. And so I was trying to kind of like, I didn't necessarily believe in Christianity and the Christian God. I was like, I don't know. And I felt like, and I still feel this, And I feel like all of this is also so silly because I had felt God. I had felt this love for everybody, and I had experienced it so directly. But instead of just saying, well, that's God, and I trust that, the thing that I felt, I was like, I need like this rational conceptualization of God to also like understand it better. And I just didn't understand it. And so I'm like, okay, there's got to be like these three different energies. I also was like kind of coming up with this idea, like there's like multiple like levels to the universe, and there's like multiple gods that like stack. I don't know. And one of the things that I came up with the idea of like the Old Testament God was this idea of like universal justice. Okay. And I actually think I created this energy. This is something that talks about in the Starseed transmissions. Basically, everything that you think, every thought that you have, visual, verbal, becomes reality because we all have this like spark of the creator in us. And I would just think of a concept of a divinity, and then I would see it and feel it with me. And maybe this was a thing that had already existed. I don't know. But I like started trying to basically figure out the pieces of God so I could put them together into true God so that I could then like follow God properly, which is very convoluted and backwards. Okay. And because I could connect to different things. And the stuff with the conduit was that I would get tongue pressure when something was a yes, or no pressure if it was a no, or I would get kind of intermediary. And so I could check things and I could talk to things. I could connect to something and then I would get their answers. And so I just started interviewing different divinities and spirits. Okay. Trying to figure out what God was. And there was this one thing that happened, which I think is so fun. So my friend that can see energy through screens, I was having a night and I was trying to figure out what should I do at the end of the world? Because I was convinced, I had been told, right? And I don't think this was really by my true intuition, but I started kind of like listening to spirits, right? I was told that I had to save the world. This is like my goal. This is my job. I gotta save the world. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm gonna take it very seriously, And I'm like, this seems crazy. Like and obviously it is crazy, but I was like convinced that, I guess why not me? Who else is going to save the world? I'm the only one. And it seems like everyone else, they start doing stuff and they're like, oh, I do cards. Oh, I do this. And like, I'm like, no one else is like interviewing gods and stuff. I don't know. Maybe I am supposed to save the world. No one else has ever seems like they've read this book, which I know they have. It used to be pretty popular, but no one else seems worried about the wave and this thing that's coming. And okay, I guess. And so I was interviewing these three, and it was universal justice, and it was these two other gods. I forget now what they were now. And I was having a bad night. I was very confused. I was just like, what am I doing? Like, what's going on? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I could just feel their energy so strong in the room. And it was like very concentrated in this corner. And so I take a picture of this blank corner and I text it to my friend. And we do this to each other sometimes. Okay, it's very weird. And I'm like, what's in the corner? What do you see in this corner, right? That's all I text her. And she's like, I see your face in the center and you look really worried and lost. She's like, you look lost and confused and sad. And then I see three faces surrounding you. And she describes like what I was talking to. And I was like, holy shit, like this is like, she can see, like it's like, again, it's this independent verification. Like she knew she could actually physically see what I was talking to. I could just see it as like blobs, but she could actually see like these representations of it on this just picture of a blank corner, So I'm trying to think where I should go with this next. So many different things happened. Because I had something else. What was the other thing that happened besides the ghosts and stuff? So, okay, the stuff started happening. I'm gonna launch into the other kind of part of the story now. Okay, are we good with that?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think I really. The mirrors. Let me finish the mirrors. That was the point. Okay, so I could put things in the mirrors. I could put things in the mirrors, and I could see them go in the mirrors. Okay.
Now, that's wicked.
Come out of the mirrors. Yeah, I could literally see it. And I'm like, okay, this is like a real thing. Like I can see the energy go in and out of the mirror, and I can actually put something into a mirror. And so I'd like put universal justice into the mirror because I didn't want to put Lucifer in the mirror, but I was like, okay, well, universal justice has like this justice aspect to it, like this necessary evil aspect of like, and so I was kind of going, I think it's more like it's necessary pain, but I had it kind of messed up. And I understand necessary pain now, but I didn't at the time. Okay. Because I feel necessary pain, but I understand what it is now. And so like I put, and it was like, in order to put universal justice in the mirror, I couldn't be like 100% loving. I had to feel like pain and stuff. And it was this whole like thing. And I had to like give up something that I cared about in order to do this. And so meanwhile, all this is going on. I'm basically losing my mind. Okay. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like supposed to save the world. I'm messing with mirrors. Like, right. Okay. So then I'm also getting experiences with this like spirit coming to me, the blue one that made the conduit, and having these like very intense, like loving experiences with it. Okay. Like at night. Like kind of sexual, but also like not, like also just very intense love, just feeling like this really, really intense love for this. And it's really weird. And so then one night, I have this dream about my boss. Okay. And, I dream that I had dreamt about him once before at that point that I remembered. And I dreamt that he was an orange cat and he needed a soft place to sleep. And I really liked my boss. We had like some things, like some disagreements, whatever. But then we had talked about, things, and we had worked it out, and we had really good communication. We get along really well. But, he's married, he's got 4 kids. And I'm like, I'm not, he's cute, but, whatever. Like, I don't really think anything of it, right? I'm just like, oh, yeah, I like him. I used to think he was kind of annoying, but now I don't. He's okay. He's cool. And so I have this dream about my boss, and I'm like fallen, and he helps me up. Like, he picks up my hands, and helps me up, and then we spin. And I felt just the most intense love and bliss I've ever felt when he took my hands and helped me up, and we spun. And I had kind of like, at this point, it was like, 7 months or so. Is that right? It was a little ways into me working there. And I think I had kind of started to kind of feel this way, but I hadn't really like fully recognized it. And I woke up and I was so like devastated in this weird way from this dream, from this really intense loving feeling, that I had never really felt in real life, like for somebody. And I think I like cried. Like I was really like, it's hard to feel that intensity of love. And then I was like, and I was doing healings at that point. Oh, I forgot about the healings. So like I healed my mom. Like she had a really, really bad cough and she'd had it for months. So she told me about it. And I didn't tell her I was going to heal her. And so I did a healing. And what I was doing is I was doing healings a really weird way. And I would just kind of imagine everything as like symbols sort of like in front of me because I wanted to be very present. I didn't want to be in astral space. There's like kind of 2 ways to do things. One is very out and one is very in. And so I did everything very in, and then I kind of imagined like a healing symbol coming down and like love. And I just felt her being healed because I had started to realize, like, say, releasing ghosts, I didn't have to actually visualize it. I could just do it with the frequency. I would just connect to them, push them up, and push them out without actually visualizing like the light. Which I think was wrong, honestly. Like, I think that's maybe where it erred, because I got told that I started messing up with the ghosts at one point, and I think that I needed to, I don't know, I was kind of rushing it, if that makes sense. And I wasn't doing it like properly. I wasn't invoking God. Like, I just started kind of just being like, okay, out, you're done. And so I had healed my mom, and I hadn't told her. And then I called her like a couple days later, and she wasn't coughing anymore. She'd been coughing really, really bad. And I was like, oh, your cough is better. Oh yeah, it got better like 2 days ago. It was just really weird. I just woke up and it was gone. I'm like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I did that. I did that. What? So, and I had just been doing things where I just sent people like love and positive energy. There's people in the group, and they're having problems with dark spirits. And so I would connect to them, and then they would feel it. They would say like, oh my God, I feel so good, whatever. Did you just do it? Yeah, I just did that. And so I was like, wow, I can really do this. And I started releasing ghosts as well that way. I could do them just like through the phone. I was at that point doing it with the visual still, and I would kind of like put the phone out, and so I had this, gosh, there's so many stories. I'm sorry. Remind me to come back to the lady with the dead son. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I woke up back to my boss. Okay. Back to the second part of the story. I'm sorry this is so long. We're already at like 2 hours. You guys are probably like, it's boring. And so I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm gonna like heal him. Okay. And I actually thought to do. First, I healed. I was like, oh, I'm going to heal. I don't know why. It was because I felt so loving. And I was like, oh, this is a good time to do some healing. It's like, I already feel really, really loving. And there was this guy that I really liked that was still back in my old town. Okay. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try to do him first. And normally I connect people to do stuff, and I don't really like get a strong sense from it. Like, you might feel like a little bit of their energy or something, but it's not like, and so I connected to him, and it was so intense. This was the guy that I had like crush on. Okay. And I felt everything that was between us, because I really liked this guy. And it was like respect. There was like this sense of like warmth and companionship, there was like this sense of love, and there's a really, really intense like desire there, like sexual component to it. It was just like fire, right? And I was like, wow, like I wasn't expecting that. Okay, this is really crazy. So I kind of like sent him some good energy. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like, I don't know what I was doing. Cool. And so then I'm like, oh, let me like connect to my boss that I just had the dream about, and I'll send him some good energy too. So I connect to him, and it's just love. It's just pure love, like the same and like bliss, like what I felt in my dream. And there's not really like there's not a sexual component to it, but it's just like 100% pure love. And I'm like, oh my God. That's the difference between these two things. And because the one thing was really like the guy had liked, it was like, that was what I thought it was about. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, this is it. Like, this is really like, this is as good as it gets, like we really connect like mentally and whatever, there's so much there. And I was like, oh no, this isn't it. Like, there's warmth there, there is love there, but it's not like this. It's not, because when I felt that pure love, it feels like God. Like it's just so brilliant, off the charts. It feels so good. It feels like when I loved the world. Like it just feels that pure and whole. And so I like sent him some positive energy, and I disconnected from it, and I was like, oh wow. And it was like there had been this corner in my mind that was like in shadow. And I was doing so much shadow work at that point. And then it was suddenly like this like light got turned on. I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with him. And I was like, oh, cool. Because I was doing all the shadow work. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, it's a corner of my mind I didn't know existed. Awesome. Like, I pulled something out of the shadows. And I was like happy about it for like, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds. And I was like, oh, fuck. He's married with 4 kids. Oh, fuck. I'm sorry. Now I'm cussing a lot. I'm like, my life, what's happening to me? No, this is terrible. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is really, 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 really bad. Oh, crap. So I'm going to back up and tell you about the lady with the sun real quick, okay?
Okay.
So I was going into these mental states when I was doing this, when I was doing the healings and the releasing, so I'm really, really loving, okay? And this one was really important to me because I was really shy, okay? I'm a lot less shy at this point because I've done presentations, I've done stuff, but still like uncomfortable talking to people sometimes. And I started doing tarot readings for people online. And this woman wanted a tarot reading, and she was like, oh, is my son okay? Like, you know, he died. Like, I want to know if he's happy. Want me to take a second?
Yep. No, it's people giving you good remarks.
Oh, okay, cool. And so I pulled some cards for her. And this was like over private messenger on Facebook, right? And I was like, oh. And it was like really bad cards. Like really, really, really bad cards. And I was like, oh. And I was like, can I just call you? Because I just felt like I cannot text her this. Like this is a conversation. And she's like, okay, yeah, you can call me. So I call her. And I start talking to her. And it turns out she'd been having like nightmares about him for a while, when he would like come to her and he couldn't talk, and he's like, you know, trying to tell her something, and he seems like he's in pain and he's distressed and stuff. And as I talked to her, and before I had started doing the reading, it was like the state that I just felt like I was just like in this pure loving state. Like I just felt so, and it was like everything that I needed to say to her just came to me. And I've actually never had someone I'm close to die. And I was very uncomfortable with like grief and like the grieving process. And it was like, I wasn't uncomfortable at all to talk to her. And I knew what she needed to hear and what to say to her. And it just came out of me. And so I talked to her. And I helped her, and I told her that I could help her son. And I saw him in the room with me. I saw his energy. And so I did love him and release him, and I felt it. And she said that I talked to her afterward, and she said that the dreams got better. And I also I pulled some cards and stuff, and the cards came out a lot better. And that she still sees him, but he's her guide now, and he's helping her. And but when I was talking to her, I told her, and I meant it so sincerely. It was like, I love you. Like, I love you so much. And it was like it was both me as the star, as this like kind of just my pure soul, like as a bridge. But it was also, she said that I was talking like him as well. And I think that I was channeling him to some degree, you know, talking to her. So back to my boss and that stuff. So, okay. So blue guy, right? Blue spirit
Right.
conduit. That happened. And I got told psychically. And also I think Valerie said this. Valerie, V, sorry. I had talked to her after the conduit stuff, and I was like really scared to talk to her because I was like, this is crazy. You're not going to believe me, blah, blah, blah. And so I talked to her, and she was like, oh, I'm talking to him. No, you're not crazy, whatever. And she's like, she's like, he said he's like your true love, and he's died, like he would die for you. It's, oh, I feel it. It's so strong. Like it's the strongest love I've ever felt. It's like the love of like a fairy tale. It's like the love of, like the greatest romance ever. And I thought that he was dead. Okay. I kept having these like energetic experiences with something blue. Okay. These like super powerful, like loving feelings. And I could feel him, during the day and stuff as well. And I was like, somehow it asked psychically or something like that. And I was like, oh, he's dead. He's like a dead, like, because some people, that's what happens with their twin flame, whatever stuff, which V didn't believe in twin flames. And she was like, well, I don't know what that is, but blah, blah, blah. But some people I've actually read, that's how it is with their twin flame, is that it's like their guide, and it's like from the veil, right? And I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. He's dead. And so then I felt my boss, and then I was like, oh, his energy feels like the other energy. It's the same energy. He's not dead. Like I think it took me like a day or something to figure it out, but it was like, oh no, this is the same thing. This is like somehow his like soul is coming to me, and this is happening, which was like such a mind F, okay? Because not only you can understand this, right? Like,
Oh yeah, I can absolutely.
oh no, this is terrible. And it's like I'm having these experiences and I'm deeply in love with this thing. I think it's a ghost. Oh no, it's my married boss with 4 kids. What? 4 young kids. Like, it's like, oh gosh, this is really, really bad. And so, where was I about to go? I just had a train of thought that it just vanished on me. Oh, okay. So then I started one night, I was in the realm of falling asleep, but not asleep yet, right? I'm like very relaxed. I'm laying in bed. I close my eyes and I start remote viewing. Okay. I'd been kind of practicing with that a bit, right? I was always very interested in remote viewing. Sometimes I ask people to give me targets, kind of a thing, and see what I could get from the target. And I start remote viewing, like going into a hypnotic regression type thing, right? It's very spontaneously, like, and looking at our past lives together. And one of them was in the Wild West, okay? And I'm not like into the Wild West, but this was where this test was set. And it's like just in snippets, okay? And it's like somehow he's like going away to like a war or something. He had to leave. And I get this snippet of like I'm getting a letter, and I'm so happy, to get this letter. And then I feel this, just like joy, like excitement over this letter. And then he comes back, and I have this snippet, and I'm just like looking up into his eyes, and they're just like they're blue, and they're just like twinkling at me, and I just feel, so happy to see him again. And then there's like another snippet, and it's like we just had sex, okay, but it's like I don't see that part. It's like the after. And we're laying in bed together, and it's like I get this feeling that it's like I've been really closed off in this life, not my life, but in this past life, okay? And I was so like hurt by him leaving. Like it was so hard what I went through. And it's like weird because it's like I'm still seeing the past life, but I'm also getting a metaphor to go with it. So it's like this weird kind of like metaphor on top of the past life. It's like this penny is like laying in the street, and I'm being offered this choice in this moment laying in bed, where the top side of the penny is like so bright and so shining and so good, and it's just love. It's just pure love. And then the back side of it is so dark and pitted and scarred and twisted, and it's the pain of losing that love. And it's like, in order to live intensely, in order to really feel the love, I have to pick up both sides of the penny. Like, I have to pick up the whole penny. You can't just pick up one part of it. You have to actually let yourself feel it. And otherwise, you're kind of in this comfort, but you're not living intensely. And that's really what, the psychic stuff is about as well. It's about being intense. It's about accepting, the world and the intensity of the world and feeling everything as intensely as it can be felt and not running from it, because that's what a lot of the lessons I've learned, are about. It's about not seeking comfort. It's about seeking truth instead of comfort and intensity. And so in my past life, I make this choice to pick up the penny. And then I kind of have this impression that and it kind of links with this dream that I had a long time ago, where we moved up north, and we had kids, and we're really, really, really happy together. And I also remember this other past life, and the snippet is we're running from like these guards or something, and we're going up these stairs on this tower, like the stone tower, and we get to the top, and we link hands and we jump, and we like hold each other as we're falling. And it's like the most intense feeling of relief and love and like pain, and sorrow. But it's like what was coming was it's like this relief at just being set, like whatever we had been going through, which I don't know what it was so bad that we're just like, oh, thank God we get to be together for like the last 3 seconds of our lives. But it's also like absolutely horrific because we're falling to our deaths. And so it's just the most like intense love and pain ever. And so both of these past life memories just screw me up for days, like weeks. I'm just like crying for weeks over this because I feel it so strong. Like I feel the emotions that I felt. And it's like, I don't know, it's so strong. Like the feeling of love is so strong. And it's like, I just don't feel like fully equipped for it in this weird way. And it's almost like I know my name, from the Wild West one. It was like Diana or something. And sometimes like, it's like, I feel like Diana, but I don't feel like Diana. And I'm kind of struggling with this like identity thing. And then, I have to go to work and interact with this person. And, he doesn't remember any of this. And and it's so weird because it's like, I remember him and it's the same energy. And, I remember being with him, but then, he's just like oblivious. And so, things start happening. It's like I kind of wake up to this love, okay? And then I'm not gonna like go super into like all the things that happened, because he's married, he's got kids, and and this isn't supposed to be just like me crushing on my boss story, right? It's a psychic story, but I am gonna mention a couple of the things that are weird energetically, okay? Like some moments, because I think it's pretty cool, and it also kind of illustrates the story. So I kind of don't see him for a little bit after this time of me realizing that I'm in love with him, okay? And hold on, wait. Remind me to go back to call it the dark night of the soul, okay? Remind me to come back to it. And so I think that might happen before this. I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. So it's been like a week since this has happened, and we've kind of like seen each other in passing, but not really like interacted. Okay. And then, we're going to go out and go like scouting together in these fields. Okay. For insects. I'm giving too much away from my job now. And, we go out, and, I also have to talk to him. Okay, there's this other component to this where this woman at my job, very Christian, very kind of sanctimonious about it and judgmental towards other people. Okay. And kept kind of saying things about us, but we're not doing anything. Like he like threw like a ball at me, like this little like world globe thing. It's like this bouncy ball his kid left. And she's like, oh, he threw that at you? I'm like, yeah, like it's not a big deal. Like he's not flirting with me. I'm not flirting with him. We like enjoy interacting, and you can tell, and we're like joking and stuff, but it's not like flirtatious, you know. We're just like friends. We just act like friends. But she keeps like kind of making a big deal about stuff. And I get told like, you need to say something to him, right? So I'm kind of revving up for that. I'm not going to go into that whole conversation, but it was really weird because basically the entire conversation I was like coached through with like the conduit stuff. Okay. And the thing with the conduit is the conduit would be really accurate if I was feeling very loving and very present. And if I wasn't, it wouldn't necessarily be accurate. Or it would go off, right? It would kind of tell me things that would lead me down like a bad path. But back to the field, okay? So I have this like little, I pick up this thing, I'm like looking through this flower, and there's this little beetle. And I've never seen this type of beetle before. And I'm like, oh, look, there's like a little beetle. And it's like on my pinky finger, okay? And he comes over, and he like touches my pinky finger, like to get the beetle on his finger, right? And he's just doing it like I can feel him, okay? And he's just like kind of in the moment, just he's not thinking about it. And this explosion of gold light comes out of like where our pinky fingers touch and goes across like the whole field, like past the tree line, like it is like a nuclear bomb went off. And I feel it, right? And I'm like, holy shit. And he jumps. He like jumps and he like goes over here and he just starts like rambling about something. And I'm like, you already said that, you know. He's like, oh, sorry. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh crap, right? And then this other thing had happened, and I kind of do the light things because it's weird, okay? We're sitting in this meeting. He's going over some stuff. We're sitting like a chair apart, okay? And I see like our energetic light bodies like reach out and like hold hands like during this meeting, okay? There's really weird stuff, okay? And there was also like, there's been a lot of things. There's also the thing where sometimes I would like send him love like deliberately. This was kind of later. He just seemed kind of like, I don't know, like he needed it. And I did that, and somebody else there watched it. Like watched, because I didn't actually intend to do it as a visible light, but it came out twice. It was like two separate points during this meeting as like visible light that like went across the room into him. And this person there like watches it go across the room each time. And I was like, oh crap, I didn't mean, like, you know, I wasn't like trying to do that in a way that somebody else could see it, but I guess that, you know, happened, right? And it was kind of, this is like a problem because I can feel him all the time. Okay. And I can feel that, you know, he's not happy. And I feel this pain, you know, and I don't want to get into all his circumstances that much, but it's like, you know, some of his stuff with his family is like, you know, his wife leaves a lot, basically. She's very like, just not, she's a stay-at-home mom, and it seems like she's kind of overwhelmed with the kids a lot. And I understand feeling trapped. And I honestly feel like she probably feels kind of like I felt in my other relationship, where it's like, this guy's awesome. I should love him. You know, I do love him to some degree, but there's something wrong. And so she just leaves a lot on the weekends and doesn't spend a lot of time with him. And then I feel it when she does. And he'll, you know, he would like mention it occasionally, like not in a complaining way, but just kind of like, oh, you know, this happened. And I would feel just this pain coming from him. And it's just like so hard to feel this, you know, to be around this person and be so like connected with them. So I'm going to go back to the dark night of the soul stuff. When I first got told that, or when I first realized I was in love with him, I did this tarot reading, okay, and it was this really wonderful reading. It just flowed. Sometimes I'll just make up my own spreads because I just put the cards where they're supposed to go. So I like do this thing. I put all the cards where they're supposed to go. I don't know. I like flip them all. It's this like very intricate, beautiful spread. It's very clear cut. And it's like, talking about, the death card, right? It's like his, process of renewal and basically kind of like, oh, you guys are going to, and the thing is the future isn't set, right? And this is obviously back in the past, but it's kind of like, oh, you guys are going to end up together, yada, yada, right? And I'm like, oh, and I'm so happy. And I'm like, oh, it's going to work out. And that's like for like 2 days. And then I was like, I'm like sitting there one night and I'm like, something feels off. I'm like, I shouldn't be this happy. This isn't right. Like there's something, I'm like, this guy is married and he has 4 kids. And I'm like, yeah, it's maybe not like 100%, the perfect relationship, or there's things that could be better. But, she's like, she's their caretaker. Like she's their mom. And, I need to go. I'm like, I shouldn't be here. This is fucked up. Sorry. I'm like, I can't like insert myself into these people's relationships, and I wasn't trying to, but it's like, this is kind of what I'm being told, is that like it's gonna, that he's gonna like leave her partially because of me. And I'm like, that's not right. Like I can't do this. I can't break up this family. And I do this reading and I pull these cards, and it's funny, I actually pull the cards before I think these things. I pull the cards because I'm sitting in my room and there's an energy in the room. It's kind of up in the corner of the room. And it feels kind of like, I feel it kind of in my throat and like almost in my teeth. Like it's kind of like gritting your teeth and kind of caught in my throat. Like it's kind of sharp and unpleasant feeling. And I'm like, what is this energy like that I keep feeling? And I'm kind of ignoring it and, and I'll like connect to it. And I keep trying to release it. And it's weird because it'll go up with me as I'm releasing it, like the frequency. And then when I let go of it, instead of like going, it'll just come right back down. Like it's matching me whenever I do. And I'm like, it's really bizarre. Okay. And so I start pulling these cards and I get the worst spread. It's like the reverse sun, the reverse 10 of cups. It's the poverty card. I forget which one that is. The coin card. I think it's like the 5 of coins. Gosh, there's another one that I get. What would it be? Gosh, I forget. There's another card that's an amazingly happy card, and it's reversed. And then it's the card of putting your affairs in order and leaving. I think it's the 8 of cups. And I'm like, what is this spread about, right? And so then I start thinking this thing, and I'm like, oh, it's, this is wrong. I need to go. I'm like, I need to apply for something else. I need to get out right now. Like, this isn't right. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but this isn't what's supposed to happen. There's no way. And I'm like, it's about doing the right thing, right? And what I had learned with my tarot readings was don't listen to the cards. Like, not don't listen to the cards, but always follow your own intuition first over what cards will tell you. Like, if the minute you take cards over your own intuition, you're making a mistake. You're letting something mislead you. And I'm like, I just made that mistake, didn't I? Like, I'm letting myself be told that this thing is going to work out and it's so beautiful, but it's morally wrong. It's messed up. And so as I think this energy starts coming closer and closer to me. And sorry.
That's all right.
He's almost gone. It enters me. And I realize that it's my pain. Because it's just pain. It's like, it's the dark side of the penny. And it's just the worst emotional pain I've ever felt in my entire life. And it feels like, described it as like, it feels like just black velvet is just pouring out of my heart. It's like this love, this so intense love just mixed with like the most intense pain. And I'm just cold, and I just like, I'm like shivering, and I just like curl up and under the covers, and I'm just like shaking from this. And I say, like, I'm like, I accept the pain. Like, I accept this. This is like what, you know, like, I'm not going to run from this thing. And so then it's like a day goes by, and then I'm like told again, I'm like, no, you know, no, it's okay. Like, you're supposed to do this. Don't leave. I'm like starting to fill out this application. No, you're not supposed to leave yet. Oh, okay. And I'm like happy again. I'm like, oh, it's going to work out. Right. And then it's like the next night. Okay. And I'm talking to my friend, and it's the first time I met her, the one that sees energy through. And she's going through just one of the worst experiences of her life. And this is like the first time I'm talking to her on video. And she calls me right in the middle of this event, okay? Where I then think, this is really crazy because this ties into all the other weird stuff, which is still ongoing, okay? Sorry that there's so many story tangents. But I think that I have to put Lucifer in the mirror, and that the only way I can do that is if I feel like intense pain and suffering, and that like he gave up, like, you know, like it was like a sacrifice for free will to feel all of this pain, to not be separate from God, and that I have to do the same thing. And so I must leave. And so I reconvinced myself that I have to go. But now it's not because it's morally, or it's not because, oh, I have to save his children from, you know, leaving their mother. But now it's like, well, I have to save the world. And in order to save the world, I have to leave. And so I'm going through this and I'm just sobbing. Okay. I'm just like sobbing in my room. And then like this person calls me I've never talked to before. And I'm like, I have to help her. Because I'm also at the same time counseling people and talking to people and doing tarot readings and like dealing with ghosts and like really dark energies and stuff. Like while this is all ongoing. And I'm like, well, this is like my duty. Like I must help her. So I like answer, and she's going through something, and we're both just like, oh, like, this is so awful. What's going on? Which is kind of nice because it's like a bonding moment, but it's like, oh my gosh, what a disaster of a night. Okay. So then I get reconvinced again. Like I fill out this whole job application, and I'm like about to send it, and it's like, no, don't send it. Like, you don't. I write a cover letter, like I do all the things. It's like, no, don't do it. It's wrong. It's like so strong, like this feeling. It's like, you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to leave. I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to leave. So it's very long, so I'm going to kind of skip, okay? And I don't want to get super into stuff. Basically, I figure out that I should just follow God, okay? And I shouldn't come up with weird alternate definitions of God. And I also can talk to his spirit through the conduit. But okay, so this actually happened somewhat recently. So I did it once quite a while ago, but not on purpose, okay? It's when I feel so like loving in my heart, like you feel like you're floating, you know, you feel like you're just relaxed and at ease, and you just feel this really intense love. And that's how I know it's like safe, if that makes sense. Like how I know that it's the right thing. And oh my gosh, I almost missed the bad week. Okay, I'm sorry. Can I 20 more minutes?
No,
well,
you're fine. It's all about you.
All right. Sorry, people. I hope it's interesting. So I can't talk about what I was about to talk about. So I wanted to characterize this relationship better and kind of give more of a thing, but I'm gonna like try to be faster with it, okay? But basically, I'm having a really hard time with it because I can tell that he feels guilty and that there is something, but like at the same time, it's like unacknowledged, and then he's almost like avoiding me, you know, like he'll like go you know, he kind of wants to sit next to me. He's about to, and he's like, oh, I'm going to go all the way to the opposite side of the table. Or he's like not inviting me to things that I probably should be invited to, you know, for like my job, for like my career progression, because it's going to involve like more interaction. And I'm like, this really sucks. Like he's letting his fear control him, you know, his fear of this thing, right? And I'm not doing anything. He's not doing anything. But I can tell that there's, you know, that there's something there. And I know that he's not in love with me the same way that I'm in love with him. But I know that his soul is in love with me, which is a very weird distinction. But it's like the man and the soul, and they're the same, but they're different, right? And I know that he feels something and that he really cares about me. And, you know, he says he trusts me and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot there, but it's not, and I know that he feels it, but it's not the same way that I feel it, where it is like all of it. You know what I mean? Like it's like complete. And so, I start like I just like, even from the start, I had told him kind of about Psychic Week, and he's very Christian. And I had told him this kind of like very kind of minimal version of Psychic Week. Oh my gosh, I forgot to talk about the Jinn. The Jinn's later. All right. And so I just tell him things that like basically it's like, why am I telling my boss this? You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know why, like I had known him like a week, and I told him about this thing that I don't tell like really anybody about. It was really weird. And he just kind of listens to it, you know, and he doesn't really judge me. He doesn't really like offer a lot of feedback, but he just kind of listens to it. And he's just kind of like, oh, okay. And I feel like it's okay, you know? And then we're like, I don't know, just kind of open with each other about certain things, but like, you know, in a whatever, trying to sort of keep it on a certain boundary, right? And I end up just texting him weird stuff, okay? It starts getting bad because I'm also keep getting knocks, okay? My lights flicker still. Always get light flickers, knocks, sparks, all the things, as well as feelings, okay? And so, like, I'm thinking, oh, he's letting his fear, I'm like writing in a journal, okay? I'm like, oh, he's letting his fear control him, whatever. He's lying, right? Because I felt like he was like lying to me about certain things. And it was like knock, you know, and it's like, oh, he's the fear is gonna destroy him. I have this like impulse to write it, and it's like knock, like such a loud like crack, like I feel like my ceiling's about to fall in, and I'm like, oh my god, because I'm so scared that he's going, not even that we're not going to be together, but like that he's going to let his fear rule his life, partially because of this book, right? And it's like there's two paths, and there's like the path of fear and the path of love, and right, and I'm like, he can't, you know, act out of fear. I want him to you know, him to be true to his soul, you know, more than anything. And I'm sending him this text, and it's like, oh, I know something like, I know you're going through something and whatever. And I'm like, you can't, you have to stop lying. Your lies are going to destroy you. Like this weird fucking thing to send your boss. He just doesn't respond. Right. And it's like, yeah, but I know him really well. And I know he's not going to bring it up either. You know what I mean? And I know he's not going to say anything, and he's not going to like, you know what I mean? Like fire me or whatever. I know he's just going to kind of like be like, oh, that's really weird, and kind of like put it aside. Right. But it still freaks me out. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Why did I do that? Oh, I'm so dumb. Why am I texting my boss this weird stuff? And it's because I'm so worried about him, you know, but it's like, oh, this was a really bad idea. I'm crazy. I'm letting like my weird psychic, like, you know, I'm getting these messages interfere with like my real world shit, you know, that I gotta do. Yeah. Yeah, Chris. Just like, what are you doing? And so that had happened, and then I also had this project that was like not going well, okay, and it was from another boss. I had kind of two bosses, okay, but one of them's like very remote and whatever, it was a whole thing. not gonna talk about it. But and he had given me this project, but he was very, very indecisive and indistinct about what he wanted. This is a very big thing, and I'm like, I don't really know what to do. My real boss didn't really know how to help me or what to do, because he was like, yeah, I don't understand what he wants you to do either. And so there's kind of that going on. And meanwhile, I'm still using the conduit, okay? And I'm like doing stuff like going on the psychic group, and I'm like, oh, I'll answer like any question. And I do ask like the conduit whether or not I can answer the question. And then it's like, oh, will we be together? I'm like, you have like a 43% chance of being together. And I'm giving people these like insanely answers to things. And it's like, this is really weird. I'm like answering, you know, it's like this I have this message, so it's like 50 different answers that I'm giving to people. And, you know, I'm trying to be like, you know, like, oh, it depends on you and whatever, but not as much as I had started off being, where I'm very like, oh, it's nebulous, whatever. I'm like giving people like specific probabilities of things, and I'm using the conduit like a lot. Okay. And not a good idea. Okay. So I'm kind of like in this bad mental state. Okay. I think I'm supposed to save the world. Better with the God definition at this point, okay? But like still thinking I gotta save the world and using the conduit all the time and trying. This is why Starseed transmissions matters, and me kind of leading up to that, because trying to be in the psychic week, because I'm trying to be on that, in that orchestra. Okay, I want to be in the orchestra so bad, and so I'm feeling like everything, like it's like, oh, should I like do this thing, you know? And I'm like feeling it, like I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it naturally, spontaneously. I'm doing it by checking every single thing to see if it's the thing that I'm supposed to do, which is not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to just do it as like a natural flow of impulse. Because every single thing I must check. And so I start living my life like according to this conduit, okay, and according to the energy that I feel, like the different like feelings and the different pressure, and because I get positive, negative type feeling, right? And I'm using it for everything, okay. And then I send this text. I'm like worried about this project, and basically I start going into this like sphere spiral, okay, because I'm letting my intuition control me, but it's not really my intuition, because it's filtered through your subconscious, which has all this other stuff in it. Your subconscious is clear, okay, right? That's good, but my subconscious is not clear at this moment. It is incredibly distorted, and it's distorting everything that I get. And so I become like convinced that somebody is like siphoning my gas. I keep like losing gas in my car, and then I'm like, I can't drive to work because I'm losing gas, which I don't know. But then it's like I'm told to say that, you know, as well. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to go in because it told me not to go in. I'm like making food decisions based on this. Okay, it's really bad. And I start getting behind on work for this week. And then I become so like frantic that I'm behind on work, okay? And I'm like, oh, I can't, like, I don't want to be behind on work. I'm going to disappoint him. And I don't sleep or eat for a week because I know. So for like a few hours at points, like it's like the first couple nights I couldn't sleep. And then it's like, I want to sleep, but I'm so scared. I'm like, I'm gonna do this project. I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna do it so good, and then I like can't do it, and I'm so blocked by like my fear. It's like this kind of creative thing, and I'm like, I can't do it, and I'm doing this, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna figure out the secrets of the universe. And I start like channeling shit, right? And I can't, like, I start falling into this trance state, and I can't get out of the trance state. And I'm drawing, and it's like I'm drawing the structure of the universe, but it's like all like it's not really is. It's like all fucked up, and it's got this really, really dark energy, and I'm like can't pull myself out of this trance. And then I'm like, oh, I'll do like energy healing stuff on myself, and then I'll feel better, and then I'll be able to do my work, and then everything will be okay. And I like try to do like light stuff, and I'm like, oh, I feel a little bit better, but I'm like so tired. And oh my god, I also, oh gosh, And I also was trying to write him a song. Okay. It's a whole thing. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to use, because I get such strong messages, right, from things. And I'll look at words and it'll be like the thing to give me like a message about something. And I'm like, oh, I can have like the conduit and like my spirits help me make the song, that idea. Okay. And so I start like pulling all these books out and I'm like flipping them open and random words, and then it's like do. It's like I'm getting like gibberish, but it's like sensical gibberish in a way. It's like someone's fucking with me. Okay. I make us This is really bad. Okay. This is like really like embarrassing, crazy stuff. Okay. I make a board. It's like yes, no, maybe. I make basically like an Ouija board. Okay. But I'm just like using the pressure on it. It really is not good. All right. And I get told not to eat. I also went through a thing where I was vegetarian because I was told to be vegetarian because like vibrational energy thing. And then I got really sick. Essentially, like I can't be vegetarian because I already don't eat wheat. I don't eat dairy. Like I have a lot of dietary restrictions as it is. And like trying to do that was so awful and just made me really unhealthy. And then eventually it was like, no, you can stop being like, I just eat like very humanely raised meat. And I'm like, it's fine. At least I'm supporting people that humanely raised meat, like it's better than anyway. But so I get told like, oh, eating is going to lower your vibrational level. And I can see energy so clearly during this week. Like I can see stuff I've never seen before. Okay. And I see like the blue thing. Okay. And I don't think it's the same. It's not what made the conduit. Okay. But I see something blue that I've seen before. And I mean, it's like, I can see like the outline of it. Like it is like really there. Okay. And, I just, oh gosh, I let it do energy work on me. I like help it. And it's really fucked up energy work. Like I like turn all my chakras blue. I like do something with my ears. Like I'm trying to like unblock my ears. It's not good energy work. And I have sex with the blue thing as well. This is near the very end of it. Okay. Yeah, not good. Not good. And then I pass out. Like I just can't sustain being awake anymore. Okay. And I just like, I pass out. I'm like, at one point I'm like crying like on the floor before this happens because I'm trying to like untie this knot and I just like can't do it. And I'm so weak and I just can't get up. Like I'm in a really, really bad state. Okay. And so I wake up and I'm just like non-functional and I call my mom. Who lives like 3.5 hours away or something. And I'm like, I need help. Like, you need to come get me. And so my mom, bless her heart, comes and gets me. And I stay at her house for like a week. And it is the first 2 days in particular really bad. First like 3 days or so, 3-4 days, I don't know. Because I cannot stop going into this trance state. I feel like I'm constantly getting pulled out of myself. And I'm like fighting to like stay present, to stay in my body. And I feel like something is tugging at me so hard and pulling me out. And I'm constantly kind of slipping out of like this like present state and kind of going into this like trance. And I'm just like struggling. And everything I do, like just I try to like read like a book, like a page from a book, and I'm like in a trance state. And I can't do anything really without kind of doing that. Like I can't go on the computer. It's like it makes me too out of it, like everything's like making me out of it. And I'm just kind of like, I'm just constantly just trying to like stay present. I start looking for somebody to like do like some kind of like you, and I'll like do an exorcism or something on me because we burn. I made this wand thing too. Okay, it got really weird. All right, I made this wand thing. We burned the wand thing. We burn all the notes and stuff that I channeled. Okay, good, right? I had like jewelry I was wearing at the time during that week. It has a really bad feeling. Some of it is in this bag, this black plastic bag. my mom's friend comes in, and he's intuitive as well, and he's like, "What's in that bag?" And she doesn't know what's in the bag. She's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Something really bad is in that bag." He's like, "You need to get rid of that." It's because I was wearing this like black tourmaline necklace, and it just like somehow absorbed this energy. There's also like this star necklace I was wearing at the time, and it absorbed it. I ended up putting it all in salt and putting it like in the sun. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna cleanse it." The salt blocks it, but it didn't cleanse it, and the sun didn't cleanse it. It still had bad energy on it, and I didn't really want to throw it away. I think probably would be better to bury it, is kind of the general thing. But my mom like wanted to just throw it away, and I think I just ended up throwing it away. I was like, okay, that's fine, but I couldn't clear it. My mom's friend does like a soul retrieval like kind of ritual on me. He like kind of pulls my ears, like, "Elise, like, can you hear me?" "Yeah, I can hear you, come back." He does an egg cleansing, which I've done egg cleansings. It helps maybe a little bit. It doesn't like 100% do everything, but I think it helps a little bit. But it's like by the end of that week, I'm able to do the project. I do the project in like a day and a half or something that, I've been struggling all week to do. It comes out really good. Oh, I'm going to really backtrack. The beginning of the week, part of what led me into this was I had drawn this like logo, and I had like channeled it. Like I had felt where I should draw, and it came out so good. And I think I was on a really good vibrational thing. And I wasn't channeling like a spirit at that point. I was just following my intuition. Like it was like I could see it, and I could just draw it. And that was like part of what led me into that, where I was like, oh, I can just trust this for everything. Like I can draw amazing, which I can draw good anyway. But it was like, oh my God, I can just follow this. And then it was like that coupled with this like this fear, this like growing paranoia and fear. And so I end up telling my boss, I got really sick, whatever. I'm going to have to take a week off of work. He's like very concerned for me. And I'm at my mom's, and I end up going back. My mom's friend, I have this whole fight with him, and he's like, "Oh, you can't go back. You're going to get sick again. You're going to fall into this again, yada, yada." And he's like very paranoid. It's kind of a different like attitude faith than me. He's like, "Oh, you can't stay out after dark, like it's evil, blah blah blah." And I'm like, no, I'm like fine with that, and I'm gonna be fine. I kind of know what happened, but I swear off all energy work after this period. I swear off tarot, I swear off energy work. And I'm like, because at the very end I just like broke, and I was like, I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know, like I know what's real, but I'm just like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. This is really bad. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm saving the world anymore. I don't think whatever. And I need to just stop. And so I just like stop everything kind of cold turkey. So that was a bad week. And then after that, can you believe after that this happens? I'm pretty sure this is after that, which is crazy. This Jinn comes into my life. And I can see it. It's blue. I don't think it's the same blue thing. I'm not sure. It's very hard sometimes because all you really have is like the feeling of the energy, to go on. Like, because I don't see them like as a thing. And it's very loving. This might have been before the bad week. I got to reconstruct this better at some point. And it's very loving towards me. Okay. And and what's crazy is Rhonda, my friend that can see energy through. I'm going to have you have her on actually at some point, but after she's kind of through her current thing, like she'll
absolutely
be to go on. Her story is crazy. Okay. It is really intense. Oh, and we saved her friend. I knew her friend was in trouble. I actually thought her friend was dead. I was going to fly out to her state. across the country and go help her find her friend's body. Turned out her friend wasn't dead, technically. Her friend had been choked out by her abusive boyfriend and was almost dead. I didn't go out to California or to her state. I'm really bad at not saying specific details. I don't go out to her state because she's like, well, I'm going to go over to her house first. And if she's not there, then come on out. Because I thought she was going to have to like look for her friend's body by herself. And I was like, I can't let you do that. I'm like, I have no money, but I have like this tax return. I'm going to use it on plane tickets. And so turns out she like saved her friend's life by finding her and getting her help. So,
Wow.
hey, use of ability for that. Also slightly wrong because I thought she was dead, but still very strong impulse to go look for her, which was the correct impulse. So what I find is that usually my first impulse is right, but then if I start asking a lot of questions and kind of like my mind starts turning, I start making assumptions. I'm like, oh, maybe it's like this, maybe it's like that. I'll get like false hits on things. But the first push of it is usually right on. So it's kind of like learning how to differentiate it. So back to my thing. This djinn comes into my life. I didn't ask for it. I didn't try to summon it. I didn't do anything. It's very loving. It keeps like kind of like, I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, they'll kind of be like, well, I think like, the love for my boss is great or whatever. And it'll like try to like almost show me how loving it is, but it's not like the same like thing, but it is loving. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And it kind of comes and goes a few times. Like it's very weird because it can like share. I told you about this before, Grizzly, but it's like it can share my consciousness. And so I can feel these spirits jump into my conduit, and it's like in my throat, right? And I can see them jump into my conduit. And I not only will jump into my conduit, but I feel it's like this twinning of consciousness. And it can like move my body. And it actually, so I get like repeating numbers, right? That's like one of my signs. I got to a point where I was so obsessed with being perfect that if I didn't get like an 1111 type thing, I'll like freak out, which is not not healthy, and I'm a lot better at. But I do get like if it's one off, that means I'm off. I like try, but anyway, don't freak out as much though. And it at one point it like turned my head and I saw like 444, like, so I guess my point in saying that is sometimes spirits can like they can give you signs like that as well. It's not necessarily your intuition. A lot of things can mess with you, and that's kind of the whole point of this. Before I tell you my spicy djinn story, is don't trust spirits over your own intuition. That's like the lesson that I learned. And don't enjoy making your decisions, like don't ask a spirit like what flavor kombucha should I buy. Revel in your decisions and follow your intuition. I think a lot of psychics that I've talked to, this is not just me. Like I went really far, yes, into it. I really, really, really did this mistake, like very largely. Like V, she was doing stuff like she would go into astral space and she's like, oh, there's like a woman there, and she said like my chakras aren't aligned, and oh, she's doing like acupuncture on me in this. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't sound right. Like, I don't think you should just have like a random spirit. Like, she always felt like something was wrong with her and was having these spirits come and fix her. And I was like, that sounds a lot like what I did. Don't do that. She's like, oh, she feels very loving. And I'm like, yeah, but I've like encountered things that feel loving, and that's not good either. Like just because the djinn thing, okay? I'm like, just because something feels loving doesn't necessarily mean it has your best interests at heart. And there's a lot of psychics that I know, and they're like, oh, I follow my guides, and my guides tell me this, and my guides tell me that. And my advice is always follow your intuition. Feel that first. Don't use the external signs. The knocks, the light flickers, whatever. Like a lot of times that stuff is right, but I should never use that over what's inside. Or like even when I do tarot readings, things will mess with me as I'm doing tarot readings. I will see them try to influence me. With pendulums, I see, like when I barely use pendulums because I kind of started getting yes no feelings and I didn't need to, and I was told I didn't need to, but I could see something moving the pendulum and manipulating the pendulum. So be very careful. Like if something doesn't feel right to you, it's not right. Like it's very hard to be in touch with yourself, to be in touch with your intuition. And that's what this journey is all about. And as soon as you start to be open and aware, things will start finding you and trying to influence you and try to circumvent your intuition and give you an easier path to follow, like an easier sign, like something more obvious. But that is not what you should do. You should always go within. You should always look for an answer within.
That's some really good advice.
Thank you.
It really is.
Hard-earned advice.
Yes, I say it has been. That's for sure. But you know what, though?
Huh?
It sounds like you had a very interesting journey throughout the years. And you learned so much.
I did. Do you want me to?
Your book is still open.
It
There are
is.
still pages being written in it as we speak
Absolutely.
today. So there's a reason why things are happening. I'll let you speak of it whenever you want.
Okay.
This is all about you. I think you're a rising star.
Thank
She
you.
picked out the name Star.
Because of my tarot card.
Right. But ladies and gentlemen, she has told you exactly
Now through February 7th at any Penn
what she
Station.
went through. Not only that, but what she's transpired through all these years of pain and misery to deal with stuff. But yet, she survived. And that is very beautiful, I think. I mean, a lot of people are not able to survive things mentally or physically. They cannot. I think you have a better understanding of a lot of things. I think there's a lot of things that I can probably share with your talent to expand your knowledge on where you want to go.
That would be
And
very wonderful. Yes.
what you want to do with your journey throughout the remainder of your life. And ladies and gentlemen, she's awesome. She really is.
Thanks.
I put her Facebook link out there. She's got a surprise for her when she goes and checks out her new webpage, her Facebook group. I just got it done a few minutes ago with my graphic designer. Hopefully she likes it.
All right.
Our email address is grizzlyandstar@gmail.com. Once again, that's grizzlyandstar@gmail.com. Now,
I want to
Go
say
ahead.
I very much want to help people. I have a very strong. There's a lot of things I didn't mention that I feel like energy inside of myself very strong, and I've been told I've been gotten be more in touch with my intuition, and I really want to help people and share from other people because I think that we're all in the same class together.
I do believe that.
Or anything that you just want to just talk about and just share, how a yes answer feels to you, or a way that you've manifested something, or whatever you want to talk about, and you want to email that email address.
Yeah, we both monitor 24 hours a day. Unfortunately, I stay up extra late because of some of the things that I dabble in. But if you have problems with spirits in the house, if you have dark demons that need to be erected, I can't even talk, destroyed and removed from the foundations of the families that you built on in the home, we're here for you. I didn't go to class just to get a title. I went to learn the ins and outs of the spiritual realm, the ghosts, God's word, and it really opened my eyes. And some say I have a gift, and I say I have a curse. I can see through people. I can tell some things about certain people. It hurts when it's usually somebody close or a good friend or a family member. And you're like, why do you not just tell the truth? Just tell me you don't want to talk about it. My daughters always used to tell their friends and boyfriends, first thing when they hit the door, see that? That's my dad. Do not lie to him. If he asks you a question, you answer it honestly. If not, he's going to know you're not telling the truth. They're like, huh? She said, trust me. I already know. But we all have our own special ways in life. But again, email us anytime. Check out our Facebook group. And what do you have for us, Star, for your last words before we say goodnight to everybody?
Just be grateful. Try to be present in the moment. Try not to think too much about the future. Try not to feel guilty about things in the past. Learn to forgive yourself and learn to love yourself.
I have been doing many shows.
Most important thing.
Many shows I have underneath my belt. And I'm going to tell you that tonight, you literally made me cry on the show.
No.
I never had to reach for a tissue before and keep rubbing my eyes.
No.
You really touched my heart. I know you as well, with other people that are watching and are going to watch and replay this video over and over to hear thy words that came out of thy mouth. Because you do have a story. And you're not the only one.
Oh, no.
You're the only one that figured it out and stood your ground. Now, I can ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
You already know the answer to it.
Okay.
Do you ever finish watching that podcast?
No, I haven't. I've been packing.
I tell you what.
I'm very busy.
I wasn't gonna bring it up, but now is the time.
Okay.
Because it's gonna correlate
Very well. Yes.
everything that you spoke about tonight.
Do you want to tell everybody which podcast so they can watch it too?
It's called, if you go to my podcast, Grizzly is on the Hunt, or Grizzly on the Hunt on YouTube, or type in Grizzly Chris on Facebook. The link is Fallen Angels or Satan and Fallen Angels from Heaven. And if you want, I can share the link on our new Facebook group. We'll talk about religion another day, because there's different views that I stand on that. And I think you would definitely agree with me. There is a higher being, but there's no way I can top anything that you've done tonight. There's no way. And now you're starting to get emotional. Don't get me emotional now. I never cry on any of my shows.
It's good to cry. You gotta live intensely.
Yeah.
You gotta let it out.
Well,
I
I've been
actually thought I was gonna cry, but I didn't feel like I didn't really touch on the
Oh, we got another show coming. Well, that's what my
Yeah.
phone was going off there for a while. Are you crying?
Me?
No, everybody was texting me.
people are
Are you
texting me,
crying? They're like, he was crying. I'm seeing the texts right now. You make Grizzly cry. And no one has done that before. And I heard some.
What did
some
you cry
whoppers
about?
stories.
What part was it?
Just your story in the beginning,
Okay.
your journey, your past. And I'm telling you, I'm with you. We're going to roll the dice and let it flow.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast and around the world, this is Grizzly and Star. We want everybody to have a good night. Enjoy yourself. Until our next show, come see us. Bye-bye, everybody. Love you. Bye.